Xiao Ning, who traveled to a different world and became a rebellious prince, deeply understood the meaning of the phrase, the most ruthless imperial family. In order not to get involved in the whirlpool of the princes vying for the throne, he aspired to stay as far away as possible from the imperial city. Even when he reached the border, he still felt that it was not far enough, so he used his army to annex neighboring countries and continue to flee. In this way, he fled and fought all the way. In the end, he suddenly realized that he had no way to escape because he had conquered all 9 provinces in the world, and all he saw were territories. Chapter 1. Am I the Prince of Rebellion? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the antique room of carved beams and painted rafters, Xiao Ning sat beside the bed, looking at the memory of the original owner of the body that flooded into his mind. At that moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the system has been activated. Do you want to bind it? Just then, a voice rang out in Xiao Ning's mind. System. Did I really traverse? Xiao Ning finally reacted and was instantly overjoyed. System. What system are you? This system is the Yuehua system, and taking photos of the moon represents the meaning of Huaxiao. This system can link to Huaxiao, help the host summon Huaxia talents, endow the host with Huaxia inheritance, and give the host various Huaxia resources. Do you want to bind it? Tie it up. Xiao Ning exclaimed in a chorus. Do you still have to ask? Waste word count. Successfully bound, congratulations to the host for obtaining the beginner gift package. Do you want to enable it? Open. Ding. The beginner gift pack has been opened. Congratulations to the host for obtaining body enhancement. Xiang Yu Soul. Get a top-level summoning card. Get a training manual. With the sound of the system, Xiao Ning instantly felt a surge of heat flowing into his body as if it had been electrified, and within a few seconds, he transformed his body, giving him all the abilities of Xiang Yu. At the same time, the training manual also topped his mind, allowing him to instantly grasp the training essence of all the famous generals in China from ancient times to the present. Feeling the power filling his body, Xiao Ning felt a surge of pride in his heart. He said again, System, use summoning cards. Ding! The top-level summoning card has been used. Congratulations to the host for successfully summoning the peerless warrior Lu Bu. It will appear at the appropriate time. Lu Bu. Xiao Ning shivered and asked, a little guilty. Internally. The system, this Lu Bu won't come out and just stab me to death, will he? Lu Bu's military prowess is absolutely unparalleled. He is recognized as the #1 general of the 3 kingdoms, but his character. To be honest, if he could exchange it, Xiao Ning would rather exchange it for Jian Wei or Zhao Yun. Even if he comes with Gao Shun, it would be more reliable than using this guy. Don't worry, the host. All the summoned Chinese heroes are absolutely loyal to the host and there is no betrayal. Who? That's good. Xiao Ning breathed a sigh of relief and asked again. System. How can I obtain this summoning card, as well as the Chinese heritage and supplies? This is a different world completely unrelated to China. As long as the host works hard to spread Chinese elements in this world, they can receive various rewards. A different world, Chinese elements. Xiao Ning thought for a moment and said. Does Chinese poetry count? Poetry is the culture of China. Of course it counts. Oh. Xiao Ning instantly relaxed, which was much simpler. Although he was not a top student, he could at least memorize some of the well-known quatrains that have been passed down for generations. Although the quantity may not be large, it was enough to start the game. After understanding the system, Xiao Ning began to carefully examine the original owner's memory. His name is Xiao Ning, the 7th son of Emperor Xiao Xinghe of the Great Qin dynasty. He was granted the title of Prince Ning and was born to the Empress. Today, Crown Prince Xiao He is his eldest brother. Dear Emperor, dear Empress, dear Crown Prince, theoretically speaking, with such a background and status, Xiao Ning can easily walk horizontally in this imperial city. Unfortunately, Xiao Ning had a timid and cowardly nature. Not only could those princes bully him when they saw him, but even his servants dared to scold him a few times when there were no outsiders. After he was granted the title of Prince Ning, he was even nicknamed the Sheep King, which can be said to be extremely cowardly. Because of this, before the empress passed away, she begged Xiao Xinghe to appoint Xiao Ning as a prince because she couldn't rest assured of him. This also made Xiao Ning the only one among more than 20 princes to be appointed as a prince, which can be considered a magnificent imperial favor. A few days ago, a delegation was sent by the northern Xiongnu Empire in the northern region of the Great Qin Empire. The Great Qin and northern Xiongnu had always been in a hostile state. The bitter cold land of northern Xiongnu hardly produced food, but it was extremely rich in various mineral resources. So, the northern Xiongnu Empire had no one to cultivate, and almost all the people were soldiers, relying on iron cavalry equipped with strong armor and sharp blades to plunder everywhere. Surrounding countries were suffering unbearably, and the Great Qin was no exception. This time, the northern Xiongnu came to borrow grain. They said it was a loan, but in fact, they wanted it. Anyway, they definitely wouldn't repay it because of this matter, which has been a constant debate in the Great Qin dynasty. Excuse me, it seems that the Qin is too cowardly. What is the prestige of the empire? No borrowing. They will definitely come to seize it. The border between North Xiong and Great Qin is extremely long, and the cavalry of North Xiong comes and goes like wind. At that time, not only will food be seized, but the people of North Xinjiang will also be brutally slaughtered. So, the 6th Prince Xiao Lin came up with an idea and invited the northern Xiongnu delegation to conduct a siege to show them the majesty of the Qin army. Perhaps they would restrain themselves a bit. The hunting was conducted the day before yesterday, and Xiao Ning also participated. However, to his surprise, a group of assassins appeared during the hunting, targeting Xiao Xinghe. At that time, Xiao Ning was about to find the Crown Prince Xiao He who was with Xiao Xinghe, but he was kidnapped by an assassin. Seeing the assassin holding a sharp blade, Xiao Ning was frightened and ran frantically towards Xiao Xinghe's vehicles, because there were the most guards there. And the assassins didn't attack him either, instead they followed him all the way. The assassination failed, and more than 20 assassins were annihilated without even touching the emperor's chariot. However, Xiao Ning was in trouble because he was running in front of the assassins. In the eyes of others, it was Xiao Ning who led the assassins towards the emperor's chariot, and he couldn't explain it clearly. Due to the presence of the northern Xiongnu mission, Xiao Xinghe did not act on the spot and even allowed Xiao Ning to return to the royal palace. After returning to his own mansion, Zhuang Cheng, the commander of Xiao Ning's guards, immediately announced his departure from Prince Ning's mansion and guarded the main gate with some guards from the original palace, prohibiting Xiao Ning from leaving. Later, a team of 50 city guards also arrived here, tightly surrounding the gate of the mansion. Xiao Ning was desperate. He felt that this must be Xiao Xinghe's intention, so he waited for the northern Xiongnu embassy to leave before dealing with his own affairs. This is a rebellion. Even if he were a prince, he would definitely die a miserable death. Thinking of being pulled to behead, poison kill, or even waist cut or ling chi, the cowardly Xiao Ning was extremely afraid. In order not to personally experience those human tortures, he simply scared himself to death, and as a result, Xiao Ning of China successfully completed the handover. After reviewing the memory of the original owner, Xiao Ning shook her head secretly and said that she was the most ruthless in the imperial family. As expected, the original owner was so cowardly that he couldn't escape the fate of being a chess piece in the end. It seems that he still needs to leave the imperial city as soon as possible. Looking at the training manual he had just obtained, while searching for the map in the original owner's memory, a hint of a smile quickly rippled around the corner of his mouth. The northern Xiongnu Empire, a slave country, isn't it? Let me fight for it and go over as soon as possible to save you from the depths of suffering. Fight against the tycoons, divide the land, awaken the laboring masses, and overthrow the cruel rule. Haha. I'm familiar with this, seventh master. You have finally come out. Xiao Ning, who had already made up his mind, stood up and opened the door, only to find 4 little girls, about 15 or 16 years old, standing at the door. They all had a worried expression on their faces, and when he saw Xiao Ning, they were extremely excited. 2 of them even burst into tears. These 4 maids are Xiao Ning's maids, named Chunlan, Qiuju, Xiaoyu, and Dongxue. They have been bought to accompany Xiao Ning since childhood, and they are the only ones in the mansion who treat Xiao Ning as a prince and have always been respectful. As for the rest of the people in the mansion, they have already run away. Originally, they didn't take this prince seriously. After the incident, those guys immediately went their separate ways and swept away valuable things in the mansion. Why are you crying? The sky won't collapse. Xiao Ning already knew about the situation in the Wang mansion, so she smiled and comforted. You wait for me in the mansion, I will go back as soon as I go. 7th Master, you can't go out. Zhuang Qing, that evil thief, is still guarding the mansion gate. Dongxue held on to Xiaoning Road. Humph. It's him that I'm looking for. A killing intent shot through Xiao Ning's eyes as she walked towards the mansion gate. The 4 girls instinctively wanted to catch up, but were stopped by Xiao Ning's backward gesture of raising her hand. At this point, there were no more people in the royal mansion, and things were almost empty. Xiao Ning sneered and said, let's move. The more you move, the better. My entrepreneurial fund will fall on you. Don't worry, brothers. The 6th prince personally promised me that as long as I brought anyone over, he would take them all in. From now on, we will all be the 6th prince's people. When the time comes. In front of the mansion gate was a group of 50 city guards, and next to the mansion gate, Zhuang Qing was surrounded by a group of guards, speaking roughly. Just then, the gate of the palace suddenly opened, and Xiao Ning stepped out. What are you doing out here? Don't you know what you've done? Go back and stay honest. Seeing Xiao Ning, Zhuang Qing furrowed his brows and began to scold, while walking towards him. The other guards quickly followed suit. Xiao Ning ignored Zhuang Qing and instead looked at the 50 strong and resolute city guards standing in front of the mansion. I'm talking to you. I didn't hear you, did I? Zhuang Qing frowned and grabbed the handle of the knife at his waist, saying with a fierce expression. Get back to the royal mansion honestly, maybe you can live another 2 days. If you move forward, don't blame me for being impolite. You are welcome. Xiao Ning's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he swung his arm and slapped Zhuang Qing's face. Come on. You're welcome to show it to me. You. Zhuang Qing was stunned by this slap. How dare this cowardly prince hit me? Looking at Xiao Ning, whose face was covered in frost, Zhuang Qing suddenly felt a hint of panic in his eyes. Of course, he dared not really pull out his sword. No matter how cowardly Xiao Ning was, he was also a prince. It was okay to scare him. If he really wanted to expose his sword in front of everyone, it would be a great crime to steal the family and exterminate the family. What's wrong? I dare not, right? Then let me tell you. What does it mean to be impolite? Xiao Ning said coldly, took a step forward and grabbed Zhuang Qing's waist knife, then swung it out in the right direction. Puff. Zhuang Qing's right arm flew up in an instant, with blood shooting fiercely. In the midst of a mournful scream, the blade flickered, and Zhuang Qing's body fell into a pool of blood. His arms and knee-length broken legs scattered around him, and he fainted to death. Chapter 2. Originally Assassin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The palace guards and the city guards stared at Xiao Ning, who was full of murderous spirit. He was cowardly, and even had no courage to look at others. King Ning, known as the Sheep King, suddenly turned into a bloodthirsty Shura, turning Xiao Ning into a human being. This made them fall into a dream, and they could hardly believe what they saw. But Xiao Ning did not stop there. He turned his head to look at his former guards, his gaze fixed on them. "Rebels of the Lord, come and die for me." As he spoke, Xiao Ning had already rushed towards the guards and swung his single sword. The guard standing at the forefront had no chance to react, and his head soared into the sky with an incredulous expression on his face. Watching the murderous Xiao Ning, the remaining guards instantly scattered and fled. Xiao Ning caught up and killed another person before stopping to pursue. "Stop it." Until then, the colonel of the city guard finally realized and couldn't help but be furious, shouting loudly. "Prince Ning, although you are a noble prince, did you just assassinate your majesty the day before yesterday with the intention of plotting rebellion, and today you have committed murder on the street? Do you consider my laws of the great Qin dynasty to be meaningless?" Ha ha ha. With a long smile, Xiao Ning casually threw away his steel knife and walked towards the colonel. "Son of a bitch, do you dare to mention the laws of Qin to me? I ask you, if you lead an army to besiege the palace without permission, according to the laws of Qin, what should you do?" We have never attacked the royal palace." The captain was greatly surprised. "Never attacked?" Xiao Ning stared at the colonel with a fierce expression. "Whether I will assassinate or not, father has his own conclusion. Even before he issues an order, you dare to openly declare that our king is plotting rebellion, and even privately lead troops to block the gate of our king's mansion for 4 or 5 hours. Humph, come tell me, who is plotting rebellion?" "I." The captain's face suddenly turned pale and his body trembled. He was sent by the 6th prince to scare Xiao Ning, but to his surprise, the usually cowardly Sheep King suddenly became so dominant as if he had changed someone else. If he really went to investigate this matter in front of the emperor, he would be in big trouble. Puff. The captain suddenly knelt on the ground. "His Highness Prince Ning, redeem himself." "Little person." "Humph. You don't need to explain this to me. I'll go find the guard and ask for an explanation." Xiao Ning let out a cold snort, then went over and led the captain's horse, flipped over and got on the horse. Looking at him and the colorless city guards, he pointed to Zhuang Qingdao on the ground. "Go find a doctor to stop bleeding and heal his wounds for him, keep an eye on him. If I come back and he is still alive, maybe I can consider being lenient with you guys, otherwise." Humph. After finishing speaking, Xiao Ning rode his horse and left. As he watched Xiao Ning gallop away, the captain collapsed to the ground as if he had been drained of all his strength. Then, he saw Zhuang Cheng on the ground and struggled to get up, shouting. "Quick, go find the doctor." In the main hall of the imperial palace, various civil and military officials of the great Qin dynasty gathered together, and Xiao Xinghe looked at the North Xiongnu envoy Gu Dan in the hall with a face as heavy as water. This Gu Dan is the left prince of the Northern Xiongnu Empire, equivalent to the left prime minister of the Great Qin. A person of such weight dares to go on an envoy to the Great Qin because the Northern Xiongnu Empire has taken advantage of the Great Qin and is now afraid to go to war with it. At this time, the Great Qin Empire was facing off against the Great Luo Empire in the south, and almost all available troops were in the south, with no time to attend to the Northern Xiongnu Empire in northern Xinjiang. "Your Majesty." Our emperor, unable to bear to harm the people of Great Qin, did not hesitate to let Gu Dan come all the way to borrow grain. Moreover, this 10 million load of grain is not a lot for Great Qin. Gu Dan stood in the hall with his head held high, looking at Xiao Xinghe River. "If your Majesty agrees, there will be no need for our two countries to use swords again, and the people of the Great Qin dynasty will not suffer any casualties. Our people of the northern Xiongnu will no longer have to worry about food shortages and will not harm the harmony between the two countries. Isn't it a great joy for everyone?" Humph. You guys are overjoyed, but I, Duchin, have to pay 10 million tons of grain. This is 30% of the annual grain production of Daqin, and with the consumption of transportation other personnel, it will at least reach more than half. If I really agree to you, the people of Daqin will also starve to death. Right, Prime Minister Gu Xian angrily said. If Daqin is in short supply of food, you can go to the Daoyuo Empire to grab it. A hint of mockery flashed in Gu Dan's eyes. Although Emperor Qin was reassured, as long as our northern Xiongnu received the grain in full, they would not take advantage of the war between Great Qin and Great Luo to attack the state of Qin from behind, so as not to worry about the future of Great Qin. But if His Majesty Qin cannot bear to part, then Gu Dan can only truthfully reply to our king. If there are any unexpected changes at that time, I hope Qin Emperor doesn't say it's unforeseeable. Bold. You northern barbarian, how dare you threaten me, Emperor Qin? Do you really think we're afraid of you? Duke of Dinghua Zhang Shiyao was furious. You may send troops, but I will definitely make it difficult for you to come and go. Ha ha ha. All right. In that case, Gu Dan is leaving. Gu Dan laughed heartily and turned around to walk outside. Although Xiao Xinghe had an unpleasant expression on his face, he didn't stop him because they wanted too much. If they really gave him, he was afraid that the food and forage of the southern army would become a problem. Oh. By the way, before I came, my emperor once told me that if Daqin felt there was too much food, we had another way. Just as he was about to reach the entrance of the main hall, Gu Dan suddenly stopped and turned to smile. Let's listen. Xiao Xinghe said expressionlessly. My emperor said, if Emperor Qin thinks there's too much, we can find a different way. The Qin will share the grain with us every month. Gu Dan said. And the quantity should not be so large. On the first day, just give us 1 load of grain, 2 loads on the second day, 4 loads on the third day, and so on. We need to give twice the amount from the previous day every day, and give it for 30 days. Are you serious? If that's the case, Daqin can promise you. 6th Prince Xiao Lin spoke up. Gu Dan's trip represents our northern Xiongnu Empire, so naturally he will not break his promise. Gu Dan said proudly. Father. My courtiers think this method is feasible, at most it's only a few thousand to tens of thousands of loads of grain, which can prevent the people of northern Xinjiang from being attacked by swords. Xiao Xinghe looked at Duke Xiao Xingxiu of Sugua, who had the best martial arts skills in the Great Qin dynasty. Your Majesty. I just calculated. According to this method, on the 10th day of the Great Qin dynasty, I need to give the northern Xiongnu 5112 dan of grain. In a few more days, it will only be a few thousand dan, so the total amount should not be too much. Xiao Xingxiu left the class to recite the Tao. Upon hearing this number, Xiao Xinghe breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. On the 10th day, 500. Those 30 days are really not much. What do you mean? Xiao Xinghe looked at the crowd. I think it's possible. I support your proposal. The ministers below also nodded one after another. Then please ask your Majesty to draft the national document. After we sign the document, Gu Dan can go back and report. Gu Dan's eyes flashed with a hint of ecstasy, and he bowed and said. Draft your mother's national letter. I disagree. At this moment, a person suddenly walked into the main hall and it was Xiao Ning. Seeing Xiao Ning, everyone was shocked, even Xiao Xinghe was slightly taken aback, not expecting him to suddenly appear here. Yo! Sheep King! What are you doing here? Is this the place you can come to? Seeing Xiao Ning, Xiao Lin flashed a hint of sarcasm and asked with a strange tone. 6th brother. The title my father gave me was Prince Ning. You want to change it now, isn't it too early? Xiao Ning looked coldly at Xiao Lindao. Xiao Lin's face changed greatly, and he instinctively looked at Xiao Xinghe before shouting. Old 7. Don't worry about talking about him. Your assassination attempt on your father's emperor is not over yet. If you don't stay in the mansion well, how dare you sneak into the main hall? Do you really think that if your father thinks about his mother, he won't punish you? Breaking into the main hall without permission. Xiao Ning gave Xiao Lin a sidelong glance. If I don't sneak into the main hall, today's great qin will be sold by you to the barbarians of northern Xiong. Upon hearing these words, everyone was taken aback. Xiao Xinghe, who was about to scold Xiao Ning, swallowed his words and looked thoughtful. Xiao Ning took a few steps forward and bowed to Xiao Xinghe, then looked up and asked. Father, I will discuss the guilt of my son later. Allow me to boldly ask, Father, do you know that once this national document is signed, on the 30th day, how much grain does Great Qin need to give to northern Xiongnu? Xiao Xinghe's gaze flickered. Have you already figured it out? Over 100,000 dan. Xiao Ning replied. What? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked, and Xiao Lin jumped out and shouted. Old 7, don't be alarmist. Just now Duke Su had already calculated that on the 10th day, he only had 500 burdens. If he had 30 days, he would not have exceeded 10,000 burdens. How could he possibly have 100,000 burdens? I don't believe it, do I? Xiao Ning waved his hand. Take the pen and ink. Eunuch Guemo looked at Xiao Xinghe and found that he had no reaction. He immediately took a pen and ink and brought it to Xiao Ning's side. Xiao Ning picked up a brush, looked left and right, and decided to directly calculate the formula on a coiled dragon pillar in the hall, muttering. The 10th day is 512 dan, right? The 11th day is 512 plus 512, a total of 1024 dan. The 12th day is. What Xiao Ning wrote on the pillar was not the numbers of the Great Qin, but rather ghost symbols like earthworms. No one present could understand them, but because Xiao Ning calculated and recited them orally, everyone could understand them. The 20th day is 104,8576. On the 20th day, Xiao Ning stopped continuing and turned to look at Xiao Xingxiu, then clicked on the record number he had written at the end. Duke Su. This is the 20th day, and the number is 1.04 million dan, isn't it? Let's simplify the calculation later. Let's calculate it as 1 and flip it 10 times, that's 1024. 1,010,24, isn't it 100,000 dan? Xiao Xingsu stared blankly at Xiao Ning, suddenly covered in cold and sweating heavily. He stepped forward and knelt down in front of Xiao Ning with a thud, hitting his head heavily on the ground. Thank you very much, Lord Ning, for saving my life. Then, the old man turned to Xiao Xinghe and kowtowed again. Your Majesty. I am guilty. I almost trapped the Great Qin in an irreparable place. Your Highness Ning is right. If we follow this law, the amount of food that the Great Qin will send out on the last day will indeed exceed 100,000 tons. If we really sign that national document, then I will be the eternal culprit of the Great Qin. The main hall exploded in an instant, and all the civil and military officials were shocked to break out in a cold sweat. Surprisingly, it was truly 100,000 burdens. Xiao Ning walked up to Gu Dan and looked at him disdainfully, saying, You barbarians, after learning some mathematics, you think you're really good. You actually want to play this trick in my daqin. Do you really think that there's no one in my daqin, and you can't even see through such a naive trick? As soon as these words were spoken, not only Gu Dan, but also the other courtiers felt their faces burning with pain. Damn it. They really didn't see through. I said who it is. It turned out to be the assassin who assassinated Emperor Qin the day before yesterday. Gu Dan's face changed and he looked at Xiao Ning before suddenly sneering. I said, the assassin you brought that day was too bad. With such a good position and such a great opportunity, how could you still fail? How about next time I borrow some northern Xiongnu warriors from you? I promise they will be stronger than you. Upon hearing Gu Dan's words, everyone present's faces changed. Chapter 3. Where is Fengxian? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Little Barbarian. The reason why I failed is because my father's guards are powerful, not because my people are worse than yours. If we use your people, why would we have to completely destroy them before entering the imperial city? Understand? Xiao Ning's disdainful way. It seems that His Royal Highness Ning has great confidence in his subordinates, right? Looking at Xiao Ning, Gu Dan suddenly narrowed his eyes. Since that's the case, how dare you bet with me? Gu Dan stared fiercely at Xiao Ning and asked. Xiao Ning smiled and said, let's listen. Didn't you say that your people are not inferior to ours? We'll bet on this. Gu Dan grinned grimly and said. I have brought 200 soldiers on this mission. Why don't you call your men to compete with them? I can have 300 of you. If you win, we won't borrow any more food and promise not to invade the Great Qin border this year. And if you lose, you will give us 10 million loads of food. How is it going? 200 to 300, dare you? Xiao Ning didn't answer, but turned his head to look at Xiao Xinghe. Xiao Xinghe's face was calm and he nodded lightly at Xiao Ning. Of course, Xiao Xinghe would not refuse. If 200 to 300 dare not agree, then the Qin's face would be truly disgraced. Moreover, this is an imperial city with many elites. Xiao Xinghe dares to agree to both of them. Okay. Then let's bet. However, there are two things that I need to clarify first. Xiao Ning turned to look at Gu Dan. Firstly, I, the great Qin warrior, cannot compete, only know how to kill. So, if all your people are killed soon, don't come to find me. Secondly, if we lose, we will give you food, but if you lose, there is only one sentence. Don't hit us. Are you thinking about farting? If you want us to gamble with food, you must also come up with corresponding bets. Whether it's warhorses, iron, or land, we can accept it. Gu Dan frowned and stared at Xiao Ning, his eyes full of ferocity, but he also saw that if he didn't offer the corresponding bet, Xiao Ning would never agree to bet. Thinking of the trap he had dug for De Qin, Gu Dan nodded. Okay. Then I'll add 10,000 war horses and 100,000 pounds of wrought iron. However, before starting the bet, you must sign a national document to avoid losing and not admitting it. Xiao Ning didn't understand the prices in this world, so she turned to look at Xiao Xingxiu. Xiao Xingxiu calculated a little and nodded lightly. Okay. Then draw up the national book. Xiao Ning happily replied. However, the bet only includes items, so don't write about not attacking the opponent within a year. Upon hearing these words, everyone was surprised and didn't understand what Xiao Ning meant. Xiao Ning ignored them and just stared at Gu Dan, who was also somewhat surprised, calmly saying. Because I am going to fight you. Gu Dan was taken aback for a moment, then looked up and let out a long smile. Ha ha ha. All right. I can't believe there are warriors like you in the great Qin Empire. All right. I'll wait for you to fight. Old 7. Are you crazy? Is this also something you can decide? Xiao Lin suddenly jumped up and shouted loudly. Do you know that if you remove this one, how many people in northern Xinjiang will die in a year? How many soldiers? What kind of hero are you playing here? Emotions are not about you fighting them. Who told you I'm not going? Xiao Ning disdainfully glanced at Xiao Lin, then turned back and took 2 steps forward, staring coldly at Gu Dan. When this matter is over, I will personally lead troops to fight against you, wash my neck clean, and wait. Hiss. Xiao Ning's words made everyone in the hall take a deep breath of air. Xiao Ning's words were already equivalent to declaring war directly on the northern Xiongnu Empire. Xiao Xinghe also frowned and spoke. Old 7. You. Father. Xiao Ning turned around and looked at Xiao Xinghe. In these years, which year has the northern Xiongnu not raided our territory of the Great Qin? They are almost all soldiers. Even if this is added, their cavalry will take off their armor and pretend to be refugees to plunder. Can we still go find them with the national documents? In addition, the border between our Great Qin and northern Xiongnu exceeds 2,000 miles, and northern Xiongnu has always been plundered by a small group of cavalry from our Great Qin. We really can't intercept them, but why do we have to chase after their cavalry? There are cavalry in northern Hungary, but don't we have cavalry in Daqin? If they can enter the territory of our Great Qin to slaughter the people, then we cannot enter the North Xiongnu to kill. Boom! Xiao Ning's words sounded like a huge thunderbolt in everyone's hearts. Yes, all along, due to being constrained by the Roman Empire, Qin had been pondering how to defend against the invasion of northern Xiongnu and avoid casualties among the people. However, he never thought that they could also attack northern Xiongnu in the same way. Listen to me, from today on, if the northern Xiongnu kills only one person from Daqin, I will go and kill 10 people from the northern Xiongnu. If you kill 10 people, I will kill 100 people. Let's see who will die first. Xiao Ning leaned her face towards Gu Dan and said in a stern tone. Let's start with your 200 soldiers. If they dare to come, then leave all their lives in my Great Qin. Also, let you remember a sentence. If you violate the heavenly power of my Great Qin, even if you are far away, you will be executed. Drink it. Before Xiao Ning could finish speaking, the generals in the palace couldn't help but shout loudly. Even some civil servants clenched their fists in excitement, and Xiao Xinghe looked at Xiao Ning and took a deep breath. Okay. Then let me see if your people have the ability to kill all my soldiers. I'll draft a national document now. Gu Dan looked at Xiao Ning with a serious expression, with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Such a character must not be left behind, otherwise it will become a great threat to the northern Xiongnu Empire. Quickly, the national document was drafted in duplicate. Xiao Ning took the document and carefully read it. Suddenly, he understood where Gu Dan's confidence came from, but he did not speak up. Instead, a hint of mockery flashed in his eyes. After the signing of the national document, everyone moved to the Forbidden Army campus together. The 200 people of northern Hungary were all light cavalry, dressed in light armor and wielding machetes. Seeing their warhorses, Xiao Ning's eyes lit up. These warhorses only had simple leather saddles and no stirrups. A reward is stable. As for the other side, there are 300 Black Cloud cavalry, the most elite cavalry of the Great Qin, with 3,000 troops, 1 water black horse and black armor, and long spears and powerful crossbows. Wait! Just as Xiao Xinghe was about to announce the start, Gu Dan suddenly called out. He pretended to pick up the national document, read it, and then pointed to Black Cloud and said, Your Highness Prince Ning, as far as I know, the Black Cloud Cavalry is the personal guard army under your Emperor's command, and is a soldier of the Great Qin. Our gambling agreement is to use your people from Prince Ning to compete with my soldiers. Are you against the rules? Upon hearing these words, all the people of the Great Qin, including Xiao Xinghe, changed their faces. Xiao Xinghe quickly picked up the national document and found that there was indeed a line written on it. Gu Dan was willing to bet with his 200 soldiers against the 300 people of Prince Ning. Xiao Xinghe and the courtiers who saw this were all aware that they had fallen into Gu Dan's trap. Some people came forward to defend themselves, but Gu Dan ignored them and simply pointed out the 4 words, Ning Wang's person, in the national document, appearing to either give up to the grain or let Xiao Ning's people compete with his soldiers. In this competition, I, the Qin. Xiao Xinghe finally let out a long sigh. Just as he was about to give up, Xiao Ning stopped him. Hey! Father, wait, isn't that the one who uses me? What's the difficulty? I just remembered the assassin who assassinated you the day before yesterday, and I still have one left. Assassin. Xiao Xinghe was stunned. Xiao Ning turned around and mockingly looked at Gu Dan, who had a bright face, and immediately let out a loud shout. "Where is Fengxian? Shit. Suddenly, a long horse hissed at the entrance of the schoolyard, and everyone turned their heads to look at it. A red and charcoal red, 2 zhang long, 8 feet high, roaring, with the appearance of soaring into the sea, was galloping towards them. Immediately, there was a warrior who was 9 feet long, with a golden crown of hair tied around his head and a 100-flower battle robe. He wore Tangyanai armor, tied a lion barbarian treasure belt, carried an iron-armed dragon tongue bow, and held a fiery square halberd. His whole body was filled with killing energy, and he rushed towards Xiao Ning. The warhorse never slowed down until it was less than 5 meters away from Xiao Ning. Suddenly, the galloping horse made an incredible sudden stop, and the person stood up, emitting a long howl of mournful rhythm towards the sky. And in the sudden visual impact that this rapid transformation into stillness brought, the general had already rolled his saddle and fallen off his horse. He strode forward to Xiao Ning, holding his painted halberd and kneeling on one knee, with a thunderous voice that contained the clouds. "Lu Bu, pay respects to the Lord." Looking at Lu Bu in front of him, Xiao Ning was excited. In fact, he had also recruited Lu Bu as a subordinate before, but that was all in the game, and now this is a real deal. He quickly approached and pulled up Lv Bu. "Please rise up first." Then, he turned his head to look at Gu Dan. "Dog egg. He was also the assassin I found, but he happened to have a sprain in his foot that day and didn't go. He ended up saving his life and came back. Just right, let him compete with your soldiers." "Okay." Gu Dan sneered. "However, what we're betting on is for your people to fight against my 200 soldiers, so whether you bring out 1 or 300, I'm all these 200 soldiers. If you think he can kill my 200 soldiers alone, of course I don't mind." "Fengxian. Did you hear that? Someone is questioning your military prowess." Xiao Ning patted Lu Bu's shoulder and pointed to the North Xiongnu cavalry who had already arranged their formation in the distance. "Did you see those 200 local chickens and tiles? Kill them all, leave no one behind. Don't worry, Lord. If you can't kill it thoroughly, Booty will come and see you." Lu Bu suddenly agreed and turned to look at the Northern Xiongnu cavalry, with a hint of ferocity on his face. He pulled out his painted halberd and jumped onto the horse, then rode up to the position where the Black Cloud cavalry had been before. Chapter 4. Lucky not to dishonor your fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the school field, on one side is a military formation composed of 200 cavalry from the Northern Xiongnu Empire, while on the other side, there is a lone soldier named Lu Bu. Old 7. Looking at the vastly different lineup, Xiao Xinghe couldn't help but frown. At first glance, Lu Bu knew he was definitely a fierce player. It was a pity to let him die like this. Since both sides were losing, it was better to just give up. Face will actually look better. Other generals also had the same idea as Xiao Xinghe. No one believed that Lv Bu could defeat the 200 North Xiongnu cavalry alone. If the opponent were really so weak, the Qin wouldn't have been a headache for the North Xiongnu. Among all the people, only Xiao Ning had absolute confidence in Lu Bu, so as soon as Xiao Xinghe spoke, he waved his hand and said, "Father, rest assured that one person is enough to deal with the Northern Xiongnu cavalry. If I send 2 people, it can be considered as bullying them." As he spoke, he casually glanced at Gu Dan, his contempt in his eyes undisguised. "You're shameless. Then let me see how powerful Prince Ning's people are." Gu Dan was furious and then waved his hand. The messenger behind him signaled the cavalry in the distance, and the Northern Xiongnu cavalry immediately drew their machetes and prepared to charge. When Lu Bu saw the signal of the start of the battle, an excited expression appeared on his face. He pulled the reins hard, and the warhorse stood up. In the roar of the Red Rabbit, Lu Bu let out a long roar, and each person and horse seemed like a burning flame, charging first against the northern Xiongnu cavalry. What a fierce general! What a pity! Behind Xiao Xinghe, Zhang Shiyao couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. The other generals also looked at Xiao Ning with a gloomy expression, all complaining in their hearts. Since they must lose, just give up. Why bother letting such a fierce general die for nothing? And upon seeing this scene, the northern Xiongnu cavalry also became furious. They were just one person and dared to charge first. The cavalry commander waved his machetes and let out a fierce roar, charging out of the formation first, and the other cavalry immediately followed suit. The distance between the two sides was only over 200 steps, which was fleeting for the cavalry. The commander acting as an arrow soon met Lu Bu. As soon as his arm holding the curved sword was raised, Lu Bu's painted halberd had already penetrated his chest like a venomous dragon. With a wave of his arm, he lifted it high and forcefully smashed it into the northern Xiongnu army formation. With a long hiss, the red hare horse crashed into the northern Xiongnu army formation with LV Bu like a meteorite. LV Bu's painted halberds opened and closed wildly, freely crossing and cutting, constantly harvesting the lives of the northern Xiongnu cavalry. Blood gushed out, and the remaining limbs flew horizontally. The northern Xiongnu army formation was overturned, with waves and waves splitting, and the entire army formation was unexpectedly pierced by LV Bu alone. In less than 30 breaths, LV Bu had fiercely charged out of the battle line of the northern Xiongnu cavalry, leaving behind 20 or 30 incomplete corpses. The lost master's warhorse remained in place, looking around in confusion and making a restless noise. Lu Bu, who had emerged from the battle, did not slow down at all. With a light reins on his horse, the red hare horse curved around and turned its head to charge towards the northern Xiongnu cavalry again. At this moment, the northern Xiongnu cavalry had just restrained their horses, not even turning their heads around. Lu Bu had already killed them again, and as the Hua Ji swung, a northern Xiongnu cavalry's shoulder strap was split in two. The splattered blood turned one of the cavalry soldiers beside him into a blood man. This person had just let out a scream of terror, and the blade of the Hua Ji had already pierced his wide mouth, cutting off his head. The blood rushed into the sky like a fountain, and the body shook twice and fell off the horse. At this time, Lu Bu had already stained his robe with blood, but he didn't care. He continued to charge forward on his horse, and Fang Tian drew halberds to create a sky full of halberd shadows. The armor and body of the northern Xiongnu cavalry were shattered in the flowing light, and one person and one horse seemed to cut into a hot and sharp blade of butter, plowing a straight groove in the northern Xiongnu army formation. Every wave of the long halberd would create a rain of blood, instantly turning into a mist of blood, enveloping the northern Xiongnu cavalry formation and spreading as Lu Bu advanced. In the midst of mournful screams and angry roars, Lu Bu, who was soaked in blood, once again shot out of the northern Xiongnu formation. All the onlookers gasped for breath, and apart from Xiao Ning, no one in the room could have imagined that this 1-on-200 battle would lead to such a situation. Before the battle began, everyone had anticipated that it would definitely be a one-sided battle, and now it is indeed the case. However, the forms of both sides were completely reversed, and the side that was suppressed or slaughtered was actually a large number of North Xiongnu cavalry. Just as everyone was shocked, LV Bu had once again entered the northern Xiongnu cavalry formation. Apart from the initial charge, the northern Xiongnu cavalry had stopped and never launched any more charges. The speed of the red hare horses made it impossible for them to form a whole team, just turning their heads, being killed, then turning their heads, and then being killed in an endless cycle. In less than a stick of incense, LV Bu had repeatedly attacked the North Xiong cavalry 5 times. The originally strict military formation had already fallen into disarray, and only over 30 cavalry remained on horseback. Watching LV Bu charge towards him again, like a god of killing, the already collapsed North Xiong cavalry finally let out a shout and began to scatter. Lu Bu Ma quickly caught up and killed a few people, then restrained the warhorse and thrust his long spear into the ground. He then took off his long bow on his back, drew his bow and arrows, and waved his arms repeatedly. Arrows streamed like light into the back of the fleeing North Xiongnu cavalry, with no missed shots. The person who hit the arrow didn't even have time to scream, so he flipped over and fell off the horse, turning into a cold corpse. A northern Xiongnu cavalry charged towards Gudan, but just over 10 meters away, suddenly stumbled and fell off his horse. He crawled and rushed towards Gudan, shouting for help with a frightened expression on his face. "Sir, save me!" Puff. Subconsciously, Gudan stepped forward to help him. Just as he was about to speak, the cavalry's body suddenly shook violently. An arrow penetrated from his mouth, and viscous blood slowly dripped down. He looked at Gudan in despair, seeming to want to say something, but didn't say a word. His eyes slowly lost their expression. Watching the cavalry in front of him die, Gudan looked up and found that his 200 cavalry had all been killed in battle. In the school field, there were only unowned war horses, corpses everywhere, and the demonic figure. For a moment, a hint of confusion and fear appeared in Gudan's eyes. The sound of horse hooves quickly approached, blood seeping through heavy armor, and killing intent pervading the air. It was as if Lu Bu, who was still shrouded in blood mist, had returned. As they passed by Gudan and others, Gudan and his attendants instinctively took a few steps back, while Lu Bu ignored them at all. He came straight to Xiao Ning's face, rolled his saddle, dismounted, and inserted his halberd to bow. "Boo! I'm lucky enough to live up to my fate. Ha ha ha. Thank you for taking the initiative. Actually, even if I take action, I can also destroy them. But when I see that Fengxian's foot injury has healed, I will let you move and relax." Xiao Ning looked at the generals like Zhang Shiyao, whose eyes were shining and staring at Lu Bu, who was about to drool. He quickly stepped forward to help Lu Bu, patted his shoulder, and laughed loudly. "Fengxian, please go back to the mansion to rest first and help me stay at home. If anyone dares to cause trouble in the mansion, don't let anyone go. Here." Lu Bu arched his hand, then mounted his horse and left. From beginning to end, he didn't even glance at Xiao Xinghe and others. "How's it going? Dog eggs?" Xiao Ning turned to look at Gudan. "Although my assassin was useless against my father's guards, it seems like he can still handle your northern Xiongnu cavalry, right?" Gudan's mouth twitched and he was speechless. For many years, the northern Xiongnu Empire has regarded the border between the two countries as intangible, invading our territory, plundering our people, and killing our people. Xiao Ning walked up to Gudan and stared at him with a frosty face. "My father, the emperor, is kind and fearing that the people of both countries will be burned by war. Therefore, he does not want to meet the northern Xiongnu swordsmen. However, in your eyes, our tolerance has become cowardice, making you even more arrogant and domineering. Therefore, let us show you our great Qin Tianwei. Go back and tell your Emperor Yuan Lai that I will soon go and take the head from his neck to pay tribute to the soldiers and civilians who were killed by your northern Xiongnu in Daqin. Are you declaring war on my northern Xiongnu?" Gudan stared fixedly at Xiao Ningdao. "Whatever you want to understand." Xiao Ning sneered. "At the same time, I would like to remind you that you lost the gambling battle just now. Remember to deliver your bet to Beiyuan City within a month." "Prince Ning, right." Before Gudan could speak, a follower walked out from behind. This person was in his early 20s, with a strong figure, broad ears, thick eyebrows and big eyes, as if half of a black tower. His gaze was burning as he stared at Xiao Ning. "You just said that if you personally go to battle, you can also slaughter all of our northern Xiongnu cavalry. I believe His Highness Ning is also very confident in his own military strength. In that case, do you dare to gamble with me alone for another battle?" "Humph. I am the Prince Ning of the Great Qin, what are you? Are you worthy of gambling with me?" Xiao Ning pouted and said. "I am the northern Xiongnu Empire." The young man with big ears said calmly, but before he could finish speaking, Gu Dan quickly interrupted him. No way. You shut up for me. You don't need to worry about my affairs. The young man turned around and scolded, then looked at Xiao Ning again. I am Yuan Shang, the 13th prince of the northern Xiongnu Empire. Although I have not been crowned as a king, I am at least a prince. I should still be worthy of fighting with you, right? The 13th prince. Xiao Ning looked up and down at Yuan Shang, then at Gu Dan, who looked anxious. He dared to scold the left prince of northern Xiong like this, and he was still so young. This prince's identity should not be false. However, how could a prince appear in the mission? Although there shouldn't be any danger in going on an envoy, after all, it's a long journey with tired horses and carriages. It seems that this prince also has some story to tell. I didn't expect that just as I planned to occupy the territory of the northern Xiongnu Empire and develop my own power, a northern Xiongnu prince came knocking on my door. Xiao Ning couldn't help but be overjoyed. If he had left this guy by his side, many plans would have been much simpler. Anyway, Yuan's injury must not be spared. Chapter 5. Can horses be weapons? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing Yuan Shang's name, Zhang Shiyao and other generals also changed their expressions, and some even whispered. What? He's Yuan Shang. Didn't he just finish fighting in Beihai Kingdom? Why did he come here? I don't know, but based on the image, it matches what the intelligence says. It shouldn't be wrong. Xiao Ning turned around to look at Zhang Shiyao and others, then turned back to look at Yuan Shang and asked. Since you are the prince, you are also qualified to gamble with this king. How do you want to gamble? And as Xiao Xinghe watched Xiao Ning talk to the northern Xiongnu embassy, he never spoke up. Instead, he watched with great interest. He felt that his seventh son seemed completely different, except for his appearance, there was nothing like before. Just you and me, let's have a 1.1 battle. Yuan Shangdao. If I lose, I'll leave my life to you. If you lose, the bet we lost before will be written off. I'm sorry, for my Qin Empire, you probably won't be worth so much supplies. Xiao Ning immediately shook her head. I am the prince of northern Xiong. How could you say that I am not as good as those supplies? Yuan was furious with injury. Among the princes of northern Hungary, there may be those with higher value than those of goods, but such princes should not appear here, right? Xiao Ning smiled and said. Upon hearing Xiao Ning's words, Yuan Shang suddenly froze and a gloomy expression appeared in his eyes. Seeing Yuan Shang's reaction, Xiao Ning's eyes flashed with joy and he spoke again. Since it's a bet between the two of us, let's take the two of us as the bet. The loser can be dealt with by the other party. If you win, you can either kill me immediately or take me back to the northern Xiongnu Empire. It's all up to you. There will be no one to stop me in Daqin, and I won too. How about that? Old 7. Upon hearing these words, Xiao Xinghe couldn't help but frown and stare at Xiao Ning, shouting. Don't act around. Okay. I promise you. Upon hearing that Xiao Xinghe wanted to dissuade, Yuan Shang immediately agreed. Although the bet was changed to this Prince Ning, as long as he wins, would Daqin really let himself take their prince back? Just exchange him for those supplies when the time comes. Father, rest assured. My courtiers have a clear understanding. Upon hearing Yuan Shang's agreement, Xiao Ning first turned around and bowed to Xiao Xinghe, then looked at Yuan Shang and said. How do you want to gamble? Horse fights, infantry fights, weapons, fists and kicks, you can choose. Did you see that? Yuan Shang pointed to the scattered corpses of the North Xiongnu cavalry on the school field, as well as the horses that had lost their owners. We'll go over here and use our own speed to grab war horses and weapons. The party who is ultimately killed or surrenders will be considered a loser. Your Highness. Yuan Shang is indeed the 13th prince of the Northern Xiongnu Empire, but he is also one of the best commanders of the Northern Xiongnu Empire. Not only is he exceptionally powerful, but he also has strategic skills. At this moment, Duke Guli rushed forward and pulled Xiao Ning, whispering. According to the intelligence we have received, just last month, the Beihai Kingdom in the northern part of the Northern Xiongnu Empire was destroyed, and the commanding officer was Yuan Shang. You must not be careless. Otherwise. Let's not gamble. Haha. Is this still a very impressive prince? That would be even better. Xiao Ning squinted her eyes and thought to herself, while also clenching her fists at Li Chuang. Thank you very much for Gu Guogong's reminder. Hello. Prince Ning, can we start now? You shouldn't be too afraid, right? We haven't signed a national treaty this time, so if you default, I really can't do anything about it. Yuan was afraid that Xiao Ning would turn back, so he quickly said. Don't worry. I, the people of Daqin, speak with all my might. Xiao Ning turned around and smiled, saying. It's you, if you lose, don't deny it. Humph. My Yuan injury is not so shameless. Yuan let out a cold snort. So start now. Okay. Xiao Ning nodded lightly, his eyes fixed on Yuan Shang. Yuan Shang also looked at Xiao Ning without showing any weakness. Suddenly, they seemed to have some kind of tacit understanding, and at the same time, they charged towards the area where the body was located, with extremely fast speed, like two sharp arrows departing from the string. In terms of speed, the two are on par, and in order not to affect each other, they even deliberately ran separately. However, based on their goals and distance, the time they received the warhorses should be almost the same. Just as he was running almost half the distance, Yuan Shang suddenly put his finger in his mouth while running, whistled hard, and heard the sound. Some warhorses turned their heads to look at Yuan Shang, and a few even ran towards him. Seeing this situation, everyone was surprised, and Xiao Ning frowned and immediately accelerated his pace. Quickly, the few warhorses ran to Yuan Shang's side. Yuan Shang casually grabbed one of them and flipped onto the horse, pulling out the spare machete from his back and backpack and charging towards Xiao Ning. When Xiao Ning finally ran to a warhorse and reached out to grab the reins, Yuan Shang suddenly let out a whistle again. The warhorse suddenly stood up, let out a hiss, then turned around and lifted its hind hoof to kick Xiao Ning. At this moment, Yuan Shang also rushed to a distance of less than 10 meters from Xiao Ning, and he had even raised the curved knife in his hand. Looking at the horse leg kicking towards him, Xiao Ning's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of anger. He reached out and grabbed one of the horse legs kicking towards him, then his body suddenly tilted back and let out a loud drink. Ah! Amidst a thunderous roar, the warhorse was unexpectedly picked up by Xiao Ning. His body spun around and he spun the warhorse around before throwing it towards Yuan Shang, who was charging towards him. Yuan was shocked when he was injured, but at this moment he had no time to dodge. Subconsciously, he swung his curved sword and plunged it into the belly of the horse flying horizontally, but it did not stop him at all. In the next moment, Yuan was injured and both the person and the horse were knocked over, and his body was also crushed by the warhorse. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and he passed out in a coma. Silent, a deathly silence, everyone stared at Xiao Ning in the field in disbelief. Before this battle began, no one could have imagined that it would end so quickly and so outrageous. When I saw Yuan Shang summoning warhorses with a whistle before, Zhang Shiyao and other generals had already started cursing loudly, while people from the northern Xiongnu such as Gu Dan were inexplicably excited. But no one expected that Xiao Ning, who was originally at a disadvantage, would solve the battle in such an incredible way in an instant. It was a warhorse weighing over 1,000 pounds. Even if the god of war of the Qin state was defeated, he probably couldn't lift it. Xiao Ning even turned it around and used it as a weapon. Prince Ning is mighty. After a while, on the other side of the school field, among the 300 Black Cloud Cavalry who had originally planned to fight against the 200 North Xiong Cavalry, a crazy shout suddenly came out. Then, the other Black Cloud Cavalry also drew out their weapons, waving towards the sky and shouting loudly. The entire school field echoed with the majesty of Prince Ning. Even the old generals Zhang Shiyao, Li Chuang, and others excitedly waved their arms and shouted along. At this moment, Xiao Ning was examining the condition of Yuan's injury. The situation was urgent just now, and he didn't think much about it. He threw the horse out, but don't smash this cargo to death. When conquering the northern Xiongnu Empire in the future, this kid will play a big role. After careful examination, Xiao Ning finally breathed a sigh of relief. Yuan injured this guy's body, which is really sturdy and not very seriously injured. It's just that he was hit in the chest by a warhorse and passed out. At this moment, Gu Dan and others also ran over, and the distant Black Cloud Cavalry saw this situation and rushed forward, blocking Xiao Ning and Gu Dan and others. Get out of the way. Let's treat the 13th prince. Gu Dan shouted loudly. Xiao Ning looked at Yuan Shang, who was still unconscious and motionless, and suddenly stood up. He turned around and passed through the Black Cloud Cavalry, coming to Gu Dan. What? Are your medical skills in the northern Xiongnu Empire so good? Can even the dead be saved? What? The 13th prince. Gu Dan stayed there as if hearing a bolt from the blue. Nonsense. Getting hit by a horse and then being held down, do you think he can still survive? Xiao Ning sneered. You actually killed our prince. Gu Dan pointed at Xiao Ning with a sorrowful and indignant expression. When Yuan Shang and Xiao Ning were gambling and fighting before, Gu Dan did not firmly stop him because he was well aware of Yuan Shang's military power. In the northern Xiongnu Empire, which they called the God of War, the Huyan court could stabilize him, while the rest were not his opponents. So in Gu Dan's view, Xiao Ning could not be a match for Yuan Shang, and even Gu Dan had no intention of using Xiao Ning to exchange for the materials he had lost before. Instead, he hinted that Yuan Shang would kill him directly in the battle. Although he hasn't been in contact for a long time, Gu Dan has already felt that Xiao Ning is definitely not simple. Such a character will become a threat to the northern Xiongnu Empire in the future, so he must be eliminated. Unexpectedly, Xiao Ning was not only shrewd, but also had a fierce general who bravely won the Third Army under his command. Even his own military force was so strong that even if Yuan Shang had used cheating methods, he still couldn't do anything to the other party. Both sides had not even started a real battle, and Yuan Shang was killed by him with his warhorse. So what if I kill him? This is a gambling game, and before the game started, wasn't that suggestive action you gave him to kill me? Xiao Ning snorted coldly. Okay. Your Highness Prince Ning, we are willing to accept defeat. Since our 13th prince has already died in battle, please hand over his body to us, and we will take it back for burial. Gu Dan's face was a bit fierce, staring at Xiao Ning and slowly saying. Bring it back. Haha. Our bet is for the loser to let the winner handle it. Since you are willing to give up, then his body is also mine now. Xiao Ning sneered. I will use his head to mourn the fallen people of our country. You don't have to think about bringing it back. Tell Yuan Lai to get a clothes and crown tomb for his third son. Also, if anyone from northern Hungary wants to invade our Qin border in the future, it's best to prepare a clothes and crown tomb for themselves first, they will use it. Your Highness Prince Ning. Are you sure you want to do this? Or is it that your great Qin will never give up with our northern Xiongnu Empire? Gu Dan stared fixedly at Xiao Ning, with a sharp gleam in his eyes. Chapter 6. The True Purpose of Assassination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even when you recklessly invaded our territory of the Great Qin and killed our people, we were already relentless. Xiao Ning stared fixedly at Gu Dan. You better get out of here quickly, don't try to provoke me, let me find an excuse to kill you, otherwise Yuan Lai will have to choose a left prince for the northern Xiongnu Empire again. Great. I will definitely report everything here to my emperor, and I hope His Highness will not regret it in the future. Goodbye. Gu Dan angrily said, and then he no longer cared about Yuan's injured body. He turned around and left with his people, but didn't even say goodbye to Xiao Xinghe, so he returned directly to the northern Xiongnu Empire. Take Yuan Shang back and settle down for a while, then find the imperial physician to treat him. Remember, don't let the people of northern Xiong see him. Later, I will personally tell my father about this matter. Looking at the backs of Gu Dan and others, Xiao Ning turned to the commander of Black Cloud Cavalry and said, "Respectfully comply with your Highness Prince Ning's orders. The strongest soldiers respect the most." The performance of LV Bu and Xiao Ning has long conquered these originally rebellious Black Cloud Cavalry, let alone Xiao Yun, who said he would tell Xiao Xinghe, so the Black Cloud Cavalry commander did not hesitate to take orders. "Thank you." Xiao Ning nodded and gestured, then walked towards Xiao Xinghe and others. "Father. Just now, I made the second bet. Because my son was confident in his heart and was afraid that explaining to him would cause the other party to be wary, he did not seek advice from father. He made the decision privately and asked father to apologize." As soon as he arrived in front of Xiao Xinghe, Xiao Ning took the initiative to kneel on one knee and apologize to Xiao Xinghe. Xiao Lin, who had originally planned to say something, couldn't help but shut his mouth upon hearing this. "Get up. Follow me back to the palace first." Xiao Xinghe looked deeply at Xiao Ning and said in his mouth, "It is still the same hall as before, with the same civil and military officials as before, except for the departure of the North Xiongnu envoy." Xiao Xinghe sat on the dragon chair, looking at Xiao Ning standing tall in the center of the main hall. His eyes were both unfamiliar and relieved. He wanted to ask Xiao Ning why there had suddenly been such a big change, but at this moment, all the ministers were present, which was undoubtedly not a good time. So he pondered for a moment and asked, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed with our own eyes what happened today. Do you have any opinions on the merits and demerits of Lao Qi?" "Your Majesty. Please allow me to ask His Highness Prince Ning a question first." Zhang Shiyao was about to open his mouth, but Xiao Xingxiu stood up first and nodded at Xiao Xinghe. Xiao Xingxiu turned his head and pointed to the ghost symbols that Xiao Ning had drawn on the Panlong pillar before, asking, "May I ask your Highness Prince Ning, what you used to calculate before?" "This is a calculation method that I have developed. I call it a formula, and as for those words, they are called numbers." Xiao Ningdao then asked Gu Mo to bring a table, which he wanted to use as a pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. While writing on the paper, he said, "I'm a bit lazy. The calculations we use for counting are too complicated, so I'll use these simpler numbers instead. Look, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4. Xiao Ning listed all the Arabic numerals and simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division formulas on paper, and explained them in his mouth. Xiao Xingsu's eyes lit up as he listened, forgetting that he was still in the main hall. He asked questions from time to time, and even grabbed a pen to calculate on his own after hearing Xiao Ning's multiplication formula. After proofreading it correctly, he excitedly waved his hands and danced, his brush yelled loudly, and the ink scattered everywhere was completely ignored. Duke Su. Actually, I have many formulas here. If you want to know how to go to my mansion at another time, I will definitely give you everything I have. Looking at Xiao Xingxiu, who was still holding him to ask questions, Xiao Ning reminded with a bitter smile. Xiao Xingxiu was taken aback for a moment, and then realized that it was still a meeting. He quickly put down his brush and bowed to Xiao Xinghe. The old minister, seeing that His Highness Prince Ning's calculation method was too astonishing, forgot himself for a moment, and I hope His Majesty can make amends. Qiao Aiqing, is it true that Lao Qi's numbers and formulas are quite effective? Xiao Xinghe asked. Your Majesty, it's not just effective. Xiao Ning said excitedly. The numbers and formulas created by His Royal Highness Prince Ning can be said to have pioneered the field of numerology. Compared to the calculations we use, they are much more advanced. This will undoubtedly be a historic achievement. Ha! Xiao Ning was taken aback, and the officials in the palace were also surprised. Who is Xiao Ning? The famous Confucian scholar of the current dynasty, with his family and old officials all over the world, even Xiao Ning respected him very much. Just now, he was shouting and screaming in the hall. If it were someone else, even if Xiao Ning didn't speak up, there would definitely be someone among the officials who would impeach him. Moreover, everyone knows that Xiao Ning has a straightforward temper. When Xiao Ning was crowned king, his opposition was the most intense, because he always looked down upon the cowardly Xiao Ning. If it weren't for the empress dragging her sick body to plead with him and asking him to give face to this dying person, Xiao Ning might not have been able to become a prince. But now, Xiao Ning is holding a brush and smearing it on paper like an alchemist's talisman, speaking some words that they don't understand, such as 37:21. Surprisingly, Xiao Ning admires it so much that even when he looks at Xiao Ning, his eyes are starry. Is this old man crazy? Your Majesty, Your Highness Prince Ning's numbers and formulas have immeasurably helped me in the Great Qin dynasty. As long as they are promoted, my calculation ability in the Great Qin dynasty will be greatly improved. I dare even assert that even a completely illiterate farmer, with just 1 or 2 months of learning these numbers and formulas, can accurately perform calculations at the level of millions or even tens of millions. Xiao Ning once again kowtowed and said. The invention of these numbers and formulas has been a great achievement for our country since the founding of the Great Qin dynasty, both in contemporary times and in the future. It has also made our country the first in the world. I dare to pay tribute to His Highness Prince Ning. My lord. I also pay tribute to His Highness Prince Ning. I support your proposal. I have attached the proposal. As soon as Xiao Ning finished speaking, more than 10 ministers from the court successively came out to support him. Among these ministers, there were both former officials and disciples of Xiao Ning who simply supported Xiao Ning, as well as those who were proficient in mathematics and saw the extraordinary qualities of the numbers and formulas created by Xiao Ning, and those who sincerely helped Xiao Ning seek credit. Seeing this situation, the other courtiers also looked at each other, but no one stood up to oppose it. Even Xiao Lin, at this moment, was only staring at Xiao Ning with anger, but dared not speak up. Just kidding, who is Xiao Ning? Who dares to stand up now and say that the number highly praised by Xiao Ning is not good? Do you think he can smash the inkstone on the table at you? Even the emperor doesn't give him face, what the hell are you? Xiao Ning also took a deep breath and nodded inwardly. When he saw Xiao Ning's performance before, he thought that the ghost talisman created by his seventh son was not simple. However, he did not expect Xiao Ning to even give such evaluations as achievements in the present, benefits in the future. I support your proposal. I would like to support you. Just as Xiao Ning was about to speak, Zhang Shiyao and a group of other generals actually stood up to support Xiao Ning. Subsequently, other officials also stepped forward one after another, and in the end, even the fourth Prince Xiao Qian spoke up to support him. In the end, only Xiao Lin and some ministers who supported him remained silent. Xiao Lin looked around and had no choice but to bow his hand, expressing his support for seeking credit for Xiao Ning. As a result, all the civil and military officials in the court stepped forward to help Xiao Ning seek credit. This kind of grand occasion is really rare in the court. No matter which world or dynasty, civil officials and military generals cannot pee in the same pot. Civil officials despise the vulgarity of military generals, and military generals despise their hypocrisy. The only thing that can make them agree with at the same time is about the royal family, such as the emperor's wedding. If it were to reward someone like this, even if one side does not oppose it, they would never stand up and support it, at most they would just watch with cold eyes. Looking at the rare unity of civil and military officials, Xiao Xinghe sighed in his heart, Du Zhang Shiyao and these guys understand the numbers. They support Xiao Ning. One reason is that Xiao Ning's previous performance has already conquered these fierce generals, and the other reason is that these guys are definitely plotting against Lu Bu now, so they should take the initiative to show kindness to Xiao Ning. But others, especially Qiao Xingxiu, were completely impressed by the numbers created by Xiao Ning. Xiao Xinghe never thought that his seemingly useless son would be recognized by both the civil and military authorities of the Manchu dynasty at the same time. All the nobles, be on equal footing. Xiao Xinghe finally spoke up and looked at Xiao Ning. Old 7, since all the ministers believe that the numbers and formulas you have created have greatly aided my great Qin, and you have also seen through the conspiracy of the Northern Xiongnu mission before, which saved my great Qin from being dragged into the abyss, I will treat myself as a reward. Tell me what you want. As long as I can do it, I will definitely not be stingy. Upon hearing this, everyone was surprised, but considering Xiao Ning's impressive performance today, everyone cleverly remained silent. Father, I am the son of the great Qin, and it is my duty to contribute to the great Qin. It is only natural that I should not have received any rewards. However, since all the ministers and father have this intention, I will only give them to the elders. I dare not resign. Xiao Ning spoke up and said. I want to ask my father to give me a prince. What? Upon hearing Xiao Ning's words, everyone had a question mark on their face. Prince. Xiao Ning is already a prince, isn't he? Who does he want a prince for? The only descendants of the empress are him and Crown Prince Xiao He. Xiao He is the crown prince and it is impossible to be crowned as a king. As for other princes, how could Xiao Ning give them such a reward? Father, and all the lords. Xiao Ning saw everyone's confusion, so Su Rong explained. I, Xiao Ning, have received great kindness from my father and mother, and now I am the Prince of Ning of the Great Qin. However, as the whole world knows, my title as Prince of Ning has nothing to do with myself. It was only through my mother's efforts and father's kindness that I was granted. And this move ultimately does not conform to my ancestral system of the Great Qin dynasty. Therefore, if everyone thinks I have made contributions today, then Xiao Ning is willing to use this contribution to officially exchange for the title of Prince Ning. Xiao Ning's words startled the entire court. Chapter 7. I want the tiger camp. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Prince Ning's righteousness. I don't know your highness's ability to hide his light and keep his depth. I have shown disrespect to Prince Ning before. I hope you can forgive me. And Qiao Xingxiu turned around again and bowed deeply to Xiao Ning. He had been the most resolute in opposing Xiao Ning's enfeoffment as the king before, but now he suddenly realized that he had always misunderstood this Ning king who was almost regarded as a coward by everyone. That's right, people are like this. If the same action happens to different people, the results and evaluations may be completely different. Those who lack the ability to endure are cowardly and cowardly. Those who have the ability to endure are humble, magnanimous, and upright. I dare not take it for granted. Duke Qiao is upright and righteous, with a vengeful heart full of passion and blood, only serving as a model for me in the Great Qin dynasty. He is also a model for our generation. Moreover, my previous title as king was indeed unworthy of virtue and position. Therefore, Duke Qiao opposes it. What is the crime? Xiao Ning quickly returned the salute and said solemnly. All right. Seeing that the two of them had a tendency to look like no one else, Xiao Xinghe felt a headache and quickly spoke up. Lao Qi, you are already the Prince of Ning. Taking the previous reward as a reward, I am not so stingy. Besides, after today, no one will say that you are not worthy of this prince. Let's make other demands. Ding. Congratulations to the host, who has successfully recognized numbers and formulas in a different world and obtained 10 tons of potato, corn, and sweet potato seeds each. Please continue to work hard. Before Xiao Xinghe could finish speaking, the sound of the system echoed in Xiao Ning's mind, and he was immediately overjoyed. Xiao Ning used to worry that these Arabic numerals were not part of the Chinese heritage, but now it seems that as long as they are not present in this world and accepted by people in this world, he can receive rewards. Moreover, these 3 high-yield crops have arrived at the right time. In the future, there is no need to worry about food issues in one's own territory. In addition, these 3 crops are not available in Daqin. After they are taken out, can they also receive rewards? If there really is one, can you have unlimited nesting? Father. If that's the case, then I dare to ask for a fiefdom with father again. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Xiao Ning spoke up. The prince naturally had a fiefdom, but when he was in theft, it was just that the empress was worried about him being bullied and wanted him some protection. In addition, with the opposition of Qiao Xingsu and others, Xiao Xinghe only gave him a fiefdom, and as for the fiefdom, he did not mention it. And now, as the Prince of Ning, he has already won with his own strength, so he can naturally obtain a fiefdom. Oh. A fiefdom. I don't know where you want to make a fiefdom, old 7. Xiao Xinghe was not surprised by Xiao Ning's request. According to the tradition of the Great Qin dynasty, the prince not only had his own fiefdom and belonged to the people, but also had his own exclusive army. Previously, Xiao Ning was too wasteful, and even if Xiao Xinghe wanted to give it, there would definitely be people opposing it. However, now Xiao Ning is no longer comparable, and it is reasonable to make this request. Xiao Xinghe waved his hand, and the eunuch Guemo immediately brought the map of Daqin. Xiao Ning took it and spread it out on the table where he had previously written the numbers. Then, he picked up his pen and drew a line on the map, and marked a square root above the line. He put down his pen and clicked with his hand. Please grant this area to your children, father. Is this the 6 kingdoms of the northern regions? When they saw the area painted by Xiao Ning, everyone was surprised. Even Xiao Xinghe took a breath of cold air. Xiao Lin, who was originally standing on the side and preparing to find a reason to refute Xiao Ning's claim of the fiefdom, was also stunned by the situation. The area painted by Xiao Ning is not within the territory of the Great Qin dynasty. That line is drawn on the northern border of the Great Qin dynasty, and that square root is drawn on the territory including the northern Xiongnu Empire. Xiao Xinghe asked Guemo to bring the map to him. Looking at the line drawn by Xiao Ning, he couldn't help but take a deep breath and looked up at Xiao Ning. Old 7. In the area you have drawn, there is only the northernmost border of Daqin, where there is a solitary city called Daqin. There are only 1,000 troops stationed there, not even the people. If you really want this place, the only thing I can give you is this remote city. Father, all you need to do is agree to grant the area drawn by my son to him. As for how to turn this place into the territory of the Great Qin and the fiefdom of my son, it's my own business. Xiao Ning confidently said. In fact, if Xiao Ning wanted a fiefdom in the territory of Daqin, far from the imperial city, Xiao Xinghe would also give it to him. This way, he could also stay away from the imperial city and develop faster and easier, but after all, it was within the territory of Daqin, and he would be at a loss for anything he did. So, Xiao Ning had long decided to take control of the border and then capture the northern Xiongnu Empire. Only on the territory he captured could he truly do as he pleased, without looking at anyone's face. Moreover, the 6 kingdoms of the northern regions are located on the edge of the mainland. Apart from these 6 kingdoms, further north lies the snow-covered icebergs all year round, and to the west lies the vast sea. To the south lies the Great Qin, which only borders other countries to the east. However, there are also mountains blocking it, and only one mountain pass can pass through. As long as the mountain pass is sealed, it can advance, retreat, and defend without any external threats. That is to say, as long as this place is occupied, Xiao Ning can make great use of Chinese civilization to establish his own country. As for this, it is the bitter cold land of the north. Hehe, what about Bidakang? The 6 countries in the northern regions are rich in mineral resources, with numerous mountains and forests, and a climate similar to that of northeast China in the past. With Xiao Ning's knowledge and system, he is absolutely confident that he can turn it into the most powerful and prosperous place in the world in a short period of time. Are you serious about what you said to the North Hungary embassy before? Looking at Xiao Ning with a confident face, Xiao Xinghe took a deep breath and asked. Yes. Xiao Ning nodded and said. The northern Xiongnu Empire has been invading our borders and killing our people all year round, but it is only because our great Qin has been confronting the great Luo Empire and has no time for him to act recklessly. As the crown prince of the great Qin, I should share the worries of my father and save the people of the great Qin from water and fire. Therefore, I am willing to go to Jinyuan city. When can we destroy the north? Xiong officials dare not speak recklessly, but I can guarantee that as long as I stay in northern Xinjiang for a day, I will not let the North Xiong invade my border again and plunder my 100 surnames. The prince guards the country's gates, and the king dies in the land. My dear son, I am going here to let the northern Xiongnu take a good look at me, the great Qin Erlang, and see my great Qin Tianwei. The saying, the prince guards the country's gates, the king dies on the land, has stirred up the emotions of the many generals. If it weren't for restraint, they would have almost cheered loudly. Even Xiao Xinghe was full of blood. After careful consideration, he finally let out a long sigh. But now that Duchin is under the control of Daoyuo, where can I gather your army? Father. My children don't need father to allocate troops specifically for them. Xiao Ningdao. As long as the father emperor gives the Tiger Martyrs camp stationed outside the imperial city to his courtiers, that's enough. Tiger Lai camp. Upon hearing Xiao Ning's words, everyone was taken aback. The name Tiger Lai camp sounds quite imposing, but its combat power is completely different from this name, because the entire Tiger Lai camp is composed of some soldiers and ruffians, and the entire Tiger Lai camp has never even experienced a single war. The origin of the Tiger Lai battalion was initially some soldiers who were selected by various units or were not wanted for various reasons. As no one wanted such people, they were simply placed near the original base of the Tiger Lai army near the imperial city, and when there was a shortage of people in that area, they could be gathered from here. Afterwards, any soldier from each legion who has the kind of unruly prick, as well as the headache-inducing veteran oilseed, or the soldier who makes mistakes, will eventually be sent here. Over time, more and more soldiers were sent here, even reaching thousands. The military headquarters simply changed the name of the Liehu army and called them Liehu camp. These military ruffians also know that they have no future, and even in the event of a military emergency in the future, they will be pulled out of the entire camp as cannon fodder. Therefore, they might as well break the cans and throw them all day long in the military camp, waiting to die. In name, they are still soldiers, but basically they are not much different from criminals. Therefore, the current Tiger Lai camp has become a headache for the military headquarters. Whoever gives it to and who doesn't want it, even Bai Qi, who has been confronting the Dalai Empire and shouting for a shortage of soldiers all day, has refused these guys. Afraid that they will affect the morale of the front line. Therefore, upon hearing that Xiao Ning actually wanted the Tiger Lai camp, everyone was shocked. If Xiao Ning really took over the Tiger Lai camp, it would not only not make Xiao Xinghe and the military difficult, but also help them solve a big problem. Old 7. Are you really sure you want Tiger Lai camp? Xiao Xinghe frowned and asked. Yes. My son wants the Tiger Lai camp. Xiao Ning's resolute approach. Do all the beloved ministers have any objections? Xiao Xinghe looked at the others and asked. Gentlemen, look at me, look at you. No one speaks. Even Xiao Lin, who had originally made up his mind to oppose as long as Xiao Ning wanted troops and had to let him recruit new soldiers himself, remained silent. In his heart, this tiger-like camp was even more difficult to serve than new soldiers. Okay. Since that's the case, then I'll give you both Jinyuan City and Tiger-like Camp. And the territory of the 6 northern states, as long as you can conquer it, it will all be your fiefdom. Xiao Xinghe saw that all the courtiers were silent, so he spoke up. If you belong to the people, you have to figure out your own way. Jinyuan City is a lonely city, and I cannot order that I, the great Qin people, go there. My dear son, thank you for your grace, father. Xiao Ning was overjoyed in his heart. Now that he had soldiers and territory, and the mountains were high and the emperor was far away, no one could control him. He could fully unleash his abilities. Father. Old 7 has indeed made great contributions today, but his merits and demerits cannot be balanced. Since the merits have already been rewarded, should there be a conclusion about his assassination of father the day before yesterday? Only in this way can we demonstrate the clear rewards and punishments of our Qin dynasty. At this moment, the 6th Prince Xiao Lin suddenly stood up and said. As soon as Xiao Lin spoke, the court instantly fell silent, and everyone looked at Xiao Ning. Xiao Ning, on the other hand, looked at Xiao Lin and gently shook his head. Brother Lu. You are still too anxious. If I were you, I wouldn't bring up this matter again, and even, would hope that others wouldn't mention it. In that case, maybe you could live a more peaceful life. Old 7. It was you who assassinated Father Emperor, what does it have to do with me? Xiao Lin's face turned cold. Brother Lu. Since returning to my mansion on the day of hunting, I have thought a lot. Originally, I thought that as long as I remained independent of the world and became my own carefree prince with peace of mind, no one would treat me as an obstacle. Xiao Ning looked at Xiao Lin seriously. Unfortunately, the tree desires tranquility but the wind does not stop. As a prince with the title of Sheep King, someone even treats me as a chess piece. Since that's the case, I can no longer tolerate it. That's why today's Xiao Ning stands out from yesterday's Sheep King. Additionally, regarding this assassination attempt, Brother 7 has a poem here. Please correct it, Brother 6. Chapter 8. The man was stolen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boil beans and burn bean ferns, dough sobbed in the kettle. Originally from the same root, why is mutual frying too urgent? Before Xiao Lin could answer, Xiao Ning recited Qiao Ji's 7-step poem from his previous life. Hiss. Xiao Xingsu took a deep breath. Originally, Xiao Ning had created numbers and formulas, which had already shocked him inexplicably. Unexpectedly, His Royal Highness Ning's literary talent was also so good. Although these 4 lines of poetry are simple and straightforward, they strike a chord with people's hearts, especially when read out at this time. They contain multiple meanings. This Prince Ning is simply a demon. Xiao Lin was also stunned, looking at Xiao Ning with complex eyes. 6 Brother. My mother told me that when I was 4 years old, I accidentally fell into the pool. 6 Brother, who was playing with me at the time, jumped into the pool without hesitation and pulled me up. Xiao Ning was also looking at Xiao Lin, and he suddenly smiled. To be honest, I don't remember much about this, but mother won't deceive me. If Brother 6 can pull me out of the pool, then I can't watch Brother 6 fall into the abyss. Speaking, Xiao Ning suddenly leaned towards Xiao Lin's ear and said in a volume that only he could hear. Brother Lu, do you really think that those assassins are dead without any evidence? With the ability of the Father Emperor, as long as there are corpses, it will be difficult to find out whose people they are. And Zhuangcheng, although I don't know how Brother 6 promised him, all I need to do is tell Father Emperor that he once spread false rumors that Brother was looking for me, which is why I appeared near the car driver and handed him over to Father Emperor. Listening to Xiao Ning's words, Xiao Lin's body suddenly stiffened, and deep fear appeared in his eyes. The assassination incident was actually planned by Xiao Lin, and those assassins were all dead warriors secretly trained by Xiao Lin. Moreover, Xiao Lin did not really intend to assassinate Xiao Xinghe, and even his target was not Xiao Ning. Xiao Ning was just a chess piece, and the crown prince Xiao He was his true goal. Therefore, Xiao Lin once strictly ordered the dead soldiers not to really approach the vehicles, which is why those dead soldiers constantly entangled with the guards halfway through the charge, and ultimately the entire army was destroyed. There were even 3 injured who committed suicide by biting through poison bags. Originally, Xiao Lin thought that as long as the dead died and Xiao Ning participated, this matter would be seamless. However, after Xiao Ning's reminder, he realized that the assassination he planned had such a fatal flaw. In fact, this is also because Xiao Ning traveled through time. Otherwise, the original Xiao Ning would have been scared to death long ago, and Xiao Lin's plan would have been successful. Brother Lu. You treat me like a chess piece, but have you ever thought that you are actually someone else's chess piece? Think about it yourself. If you can figure it out, come find me. I can help Brother Lu get through this disaster, even if it's the reward you gave me for pulling me out of the pool back then. Xiao Ning lightly patted Xiao Lin's shoulder and whispered softly, then looked at Xiao Xinghe. Father should also discuss the matter of ending the northern Xiongnu with his courtiers. I will leave for now and come back later to pay my respects to Father. As for the assassination, as long as Father investigates it thoroughly, no matter what punishment, I will have no hesitation. After speaking, Xiao Ning clasped his fists and saluted, then turned around and strode out of the hall. Xiao Xinghe looked at the back of Xiao Ning as he left, and then at the courtiers with different expressions in the hall, suddenly shaking his head and smiling bitterly. He had originally planned to wait until the end of the court to leave Xiao Ning behind because he had many things to ask him, such as the fierce General Lu Bu, his own military strength, and his purpose for going to Jinyuan City. However, in this situation, he really can't call him. Fortunately, he said he would come to pay respects later, so he decided to let Xiao Ning go. Ding! The host has successfully spread Chinese poetry in another world, and rewards 10 health pills. As soon as he walked out of the main hall, Xiao Ning heard the pleasant sound of the system and felt relieved. However, he did not immediately go to the Research Institute for the health pill, but first went to the Black Cloud Cavalry Station. Yuan Shang had already woken up, and the imperial physician confirmed that he was not in any serious condition. Therefore, after thanking the commander, Xiao Ning left with Yuan Shang. I don't know if he was willing to give up, or if he was intimidated by Xiao Ning's force. In short, Yuan Shang seemed very obedient. If he followed, he would follow without even saying a word. Xiao Ning still did not return to the mansion, but went to the Wei Wei mansion. The Wei Wei was in charge of guarding the imperial city, and all the city guards were under his control. The city guards at the entrance of the Wang mansion were also his subordinates, and Xiao Ning came to speak up. Previously, in the main hall, Xiao Ning did not take Xiao Lin to death. In fact, he could have exposed Xiao Lin in person. But now that Xiao Ning has just demonstrated his strength, it is time to rebuild his character, so he only recited the 7-step poem and woke up Xiao Lin before leaving. He wants to let Xiao Xinghe know that he is a person who values kindness and family relationships. Only with this kind of character can Xiao Xinghe, the emperor, feel more at ease with him and make it easier for him to let go in the future. As for now, it's time to make preliminary preparations. The Tiger Lai camp has arrived, but before going to take over the Tiger Lai camp, Xiao Ning needs to do something that requires a large amount of money in order to successfully conquer it. As for where the money comes from, do you really think anyone in his palace can go and rob it? At this moment, Captain Zhang Yunjing was circling around the room with a worried expression. He already knew what had happened in front of Prince Ning's mansion, so he quickly called for someone to inquire. He was also clear about everything Xiao Ning had done since then. This made Zhang Yun feel panicked. In fact, shortly after the group of city guards arrived at the entrance of the palace, Zhang Yun received news. However, like the captain, he didn't take it seriously. Between a useless prince and a powerful prince, everyone knew how to choose. But now, Xiao Ning's strong appearance made him realize that he was in big trouble. From that poem, he could guess that the assassination was not done by Xiao Ning, but rather possibly related to the sixth prince. If this really implicates Zhang Yun, let alone this guard, whether his life can be saved or not has to be discussed. But now that the civil and military officials are all in the main hall, he can't find anyone to discuss, so he can only hurriedly turn around on his own. At this moment, someone came to report the arrival of Prince Ning, but Zhang Yun dared not neglect and quickly went out to welcome him. Lower official Zhang Yun, pay respects to His Highness Prince Ning. Zhang Yun, who rushed out of the gate, bowed deeply to the ground and said with a frightened expression. His Majesty Zhang Yun's lack of strictness has caused His Royal Highness Prince Ning to be frightened and deeply ashamed. I request that Prince Ning reduce his guilt. Let's talk inside. Without hesitation, Xiao Ning walked into the guard's mansion and sat down casually in the main seat, looking at Zhang Yun who followed in and asking. Is Zhuang Qing still alive? Live. Zhang Yun quickly replied. I have already found several doctors to bandage Zhuang Qing's bleeding, and his life is at ease. However, I don't know His Highness's intentions, so I still let him lie in front of the Wang mansion. Oh. That's good. Xiao Ning nodded. Mr. Zhang, this time the king is here specifically to seek punishment from Mr. Zhang. You have sent a team of 50 city guards to patrol in front of my prince's mansion today. This is a good thing. Mr. Zhang has intentions, but although these city guards are right in front of my prince's mansion, they are watching a group of bandits empty my prince's mansion. This is the imperial city. At the feet of the emperor, there was an incident where the royal mansion was robbed. Mr. Zhang, this is your serious dereliction of duty as a guard. Ah. Upon hearing Xiao Ning's words, Zhang Yun was immediately disheartened. However, Xiao Ning's next words left him stunned. He couldn't help but look up at Xiao Ning in a daze, feeling ecstatic and even forgetting to answer them. What's going on? The city guard is watching the robbers plunder the royal mansion. Isn't this the negligence of the captain? Xiao Ning frowned and asked. Your Highness is saying that this is indeed a dereliction of duty on my part, and I apologize for it. Zhang Yun repeatedly agreed. The siege of the royal mansion turned into dereliction of duty. Of course, he knew the difference between them, but what Zhang Yun knew better was that since Xiao Ning said so, there must be something he had to do on his own. Therefore, after pleading guilty, he eagerly looked at Xiao Ning. That's great. Since you admit that this is a dereliction of duty on your part, then the finance that has been looted in this prince's mansion must be recovered by the captain's mansion for me. Xiao Ning looked at Zhang Yun calmly. Besides, I also need to know where the thieves who looted my royal mansion came from. I think it shouldn't be a problem with Mr. Zhang's ability to investigate the origins of all the thieves, right? Boom. Xiao Ning's words made a loud noise in Zhang Yun's mind, and he even felt a bit unsteady standing. Looking at Xiao Ning sitting high in the main seat and Yuan Shang standing behind him, Zhang Yun took a deep breath and finally understood the purpose of Xiao Ning sitting here. Please rest assured, Prince. Within 2 days, Zhang Yun will arrest all the thieves who looted the royal mansion and uncover the people behind them. Without too much hesitation, Zhang Yunxin straightened out and bowed again in front of Xiao Ning, shouting loudly, even changing his address. Okay. Upon seeing Zhang Yun express his feelings, Xiao Ning stood up and helped Zhang Yun up, saying with a smile. Since that's the case, then I'll go back to the mansion and wait for the good news from the captain. Yes. Zhang Yun immediately responded, and Xiao Ning patted his shoulder, nodded at him, and then left with Yuan Shang. Is this the true king of Ning? Watching Xiao Ning leave behind, Zhang Yun's eyes were complicated and he murmured at the entrance of Prince Ning's mansion, those city guards are still there, but now they look a bit disheveled, with some mottled blood stains on their clothes and armor, as well as many people with bruises and swollen faces. Zhuang Qing, whose wounds have already been bandaged, was placed in a corner and surrounded by them. There are also several doctors nearby who are treating the injuries of several city guards. What's going on with you guys? Xiao Ning walked up to the colonel of the city guard and frowned, asking. Your Highness, Prince Ning, forgive me for neglecting my duties. Just now, members of the Liang, Shi, and Chen families from the 7 prestigious families broke into the royal palace and took away your Highness's 4 maids. They were numerous and powerful, and the villains were invincible. The captain saw Xiao Ning and quickly knelt down on one knee. Later, another general entered the royal palace, claiming to be the general of His Highness's family and still living in the palace. Liang family, Shi family, and Chen family, right. That's great. I haven't found you yet, but you took the initiative to bring me to your door, humph. Upon hearing that the maidservants such as Chunlan had been taken away by someone, Xiao Ning pulled a sinister smile at the corner of her mouth and turned around to leave. Chapter 9. First kill all dogs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By the way, draw 10 people out and send Zhuangqing to my 6th brother's mansion, and the rest come with me. As soon as he took 2 steps, Xiao Ning stopped again and turned to the captain, saying, with so many city guards, isn't it good to be a witness? Yes. Without any hesitation, the captain immediately assigned 10 people to send Zhuangqing to the 6th prince's mansion, including his limbs on the ground. He himself brought the remaining people to Xiao Ning's side. Xiao Ning walked to the entrance of the Wang mansion and as soon as he pushed open the door, he saw Lu Bu. This guy had a long halberd inserted into the ground beside him, standing tall with his sword hilt pressed against his waist, and the red rabbit horse leisurely swayed its tail behind him. Upon seeing this fierce general once again, who effortlessly slaughtered 200 elite cavalry of his own country with his own strength, Yuan took a deep breath with a complex expression on his face. Seeing Xiao Ning returning, just as Lv was about to approach and salute, Xiao Ning waved his hand. Fengxian, follow me to kill. Lu was taken aback for a moment, then gave a fierce smile, pulled out his long halberd, and strode forward. The red hare horse consciously followed behind him. Your Highness, ride the little man's horse. Among the city guards, only the colonel had a horse. He led the horse to Xiao Ning and said respectfully. No need. Riding a horse is inconvenient for killing people. With a stern expression on his face, Xiao Ning took the lead in walking towards the Liang family, which was closest to Prince Ning's mansion. The colonel quickly threw his horse to a city guard and quickly followed suit. This is a trap. Xiao Ning walked at the front, while Lv and Yuan Shang followed on both sides. Yuan Shang suddenly whispered. Xiao Ning stopped and turned to look at Yuan Shang. Previously, no matter how cowardly you were also the Prince of Daqin. Even if the people of the 7 noble families were foolish, they would never force themselves into the palace because of the 4 maids. Yuan Shang didn't show any interest and explained directly. There must be someone pushing your hand behind this, with the aim of making you enemies with the 7 prestigious clans. I know this, I can even guess who instigated the 7 noble families to come to my mansion and rob people. Xiao Ning calmly replied. Do you know? Are you still going to trouble the 7 noble clans? Now, it's Yuan's turn to be surprised. A person commands several dogs to bite me, and I am temporarily unable to move him, so I will first kill all the dogs he released. Beat him. Until I can no longer find a dog that dares to bite me. Xiao Ning smiled at Yuan Shang and took another step forward. Yuan Shang was lost in thought and quickly followed suit. Along the way, the people on the street were all looking at this vast group of people. Some recognized Xiao Ning and couldn't help but whisper, while Xiao Ning ignored them. He walked all the way to the Liang family's mansion in the imperial city and turned to the colonel, saying. You will follow me soon. I don't need you to do anything, just watch. If I ask you to come, I will be a witness to me. Xiao Ning said, then pointed to the gate of Liang mansion and said. Fengxian. Break the door open. Here. Lu Bu agreed, strode forward, swung the Fang Tianhua halberd and fiercely smashed it onto the vermilion-painted gate of the Liang mansion. Boom! The heavy gate trembled violently in the loud noise, and LV Bu forcefully pulled out his battle spear. His body rotated, driving Fang Tianhua's spear to rotate in the air before hitting the gate again. Click! The door latch, which was 2 inches thick, broke like a fragile grass stick under the tremendous impact. Lu Bu stepped forward and kicked the half-open door open completely. Who dared to break into my Liang mansion? Don't you want to live anymore? The guards of the Liang mansion rushed in due to the loud noise. The leader of the guards at the front cursed loudly, while LV Bu only gave them a cold glance before turning his head to look at Xiao Ning. Xiao Ning stepped forward and walked into the Liang mansion, looking at the guards with a frosty expression. Are you Prince Ning? The head guard recognized Xiao Ning and couldn't help but stand there in a daze. How could that cowardly sheep king appear in the Liang family? Get your master out of here and tell him that I'm here to hire someone. Xiao Ning stared at the head of the nursing home with a cold expression on his face. Prince Ning, even if you are a prince, you cannot force yourself into other people's mansions at will, can you? Did you even break down the gate of my Liang family? Do you think my Liang family is easy to bully? At this moment, a person parted ways and walked out, frowning as he looked at Xiao Ning and asked. Do you also know that forcibly breaking into someone else's mansion is bullying people? How dare your Liang family tolerate the soldiers to break into my Prince Ning's mansion and kidnap my maid? Xiao Ning said with a fierce expression. Hand over the person immediately, otherwise, my king will wash the Liang mansion with blood today. How dare you? The person sternly said. No one from my Liang family has ever been to your Prince Ning's mansion. If you don't leave again, we will definitely go to your Majesty's place to report you. You can live until then before we talk. Xiao Ning sneered and then shouted. Fengxian. Take action until they hand over someone. Bu. Take orders. Lu Bu agreed and charged forward, swinging his spear and smashing it at the commander of the guard. The commander was shocked and hurriedly drew a single sword from his waist to cross his head, trying to block the blow. Puff. The war halberd was smashed down by the wind, and the commander of the courtyard, with his sword on, was split into 2 pieces without even uttering a scream. What? The Liang family was greatly surprised. He didn't expect that Xiao Ning would really dare to take action, not even calling out. He quickly retreated and waved his hand while shouting. Hurry up. Kill this person. The Liang family guards around him drew out weapons to besiege LV Bu. LV Bu was not afraid and danced his long spear like a windmill. The guards holding a single sword were unable to get close, and every time LV Bu poked out his long spear, one of the guards would die under LV Bu's spear. For a moment, the sound of weapons colliding, screams of agony echoing incessantly, and occasionally the excited cries of Lu Bu. There should be a back door here. Yuan Shang took a step forward and came to Xiao Ning's side, speaking. If they send people away through the back door, you'll be in trouble. It's okay, even if they send the person away, I have a way to make him come back. Xiao Ning said lightly. Stop it. An elderly voice suddenly sounded, and an elderly man in his 70s walked towards the backyard surrounded by a group of people, shouting loudly. It was the head of the Liang family in the imperial city. Liang Wenyan. During the battle, LV Bu turned a deaf ear and continued his killing. In this world, LV Bu only recognized Xiao Ning, and the words of others could not even be considered farts with him. Prince Ning. Are you crazy? This is the Liang family, and you allow your subordinates to kill here. Do you know the consequences? Liang Wenyan saw that his words had no effect and his expression became even more angry, shouting loudly at Xiao Ning. When your Liang family instructed servants to break into my royal mansion, did you consider the consequences? Humph, listen to me, if you don't hand over my royal maid, the Liang family in the imperial city will be expelled today. Xiao Ning shouted sternly. You go around, catch Prince Ning, and force that general to stop. Liang Wenyan saw that his soldiers and guards were constantly dying, and his eyes were red with anxiety. He shouted to the guards behind him. Those few people received orders to bypass LV Bu in the field and charge toward Xiao Ning, intending to catch him first. Fool! This guy is even more fierce than that Lu Bu, and he actually wants to catch him as a threat. Yuan Shang sneered disdainfully at the sight, knowing that Xiao Ning was terrifying. Although he had never really fought, at least he could confirm that Xiao Ning's strength was definitely greater than that of Lu Bu. Sure enough, when he saw someone charging towards him, Xiao Ning sneered and pulled out the waist knife of the captain behind him. He rushed forward and with a single blow, he knocked over the person at the front. This surprised the guards, and no one expected Xiao Ning to suddenly become so fierce. After all, Xiao Ning is a prince, and they dare not really harm him. Otherwise, when the emperor asks for punishment in the future, the Liang family will definitely abandon them as scapegoats. They were not originally Xiao Ning's opponents, and now they were bound by their hands and feet, making it even more unbearable. In just a few breaths, 5 of the 8 people who rushed in were chopped down, and the remaining 3 fled back in a row. Xiao Ning originally had no intention of participating in the war, as having LV Bu was enough. However, since he had already taken action, he decided to kill a few more, just to verify his current strength. So, Xiao Ning also waved his steel knife and joined the battle group, seeing with his own eyes that Xiao Ning had swung a nephew who couldn't run away in time to death. Liang Wenyan finally felt fear. It wasn't the soldiers of the Liang family, but rather the members of the Liang family. Even if Xiao Ning and his team killed all the soldiers and servants of the Liang family, the real charge would definitely not be equivalent to a member of the Liang family. Xiao Ning really has no scruples. The expulsion of the Liang family he just mentioned was not to scare himself. Liang Wenyan, who had reacted, quickly shouted. Prince Ning. Stop, I will return your maid to you immediately. I said, only after you hand it over will you stop. You'd better hurry up. Xiao Ning once again struck and killed a member of the Liang family, speaking coldly. Go and chase those 2 maids back. Quick. Go. Liang Wenyan turned his head and shouted loudly at the people around him. In the roar, a few people quickly rushed out of the Liang mansion. Liang Wenyan is aware of what happened in the court today, so he also knows that Xiao Ning is different now. After all, he is the helmsman of the Liang family in the imperial city. If he doesn't even have this ability, then he doesn't have to mess around. But Liang Wenyan did not know that Xiao Ning's maid had been arrested in the Liang mansion, because it was done by the playboys of the Liang family with their servants, and their information was not so well informed. After hearing that Xiao Ning came to trouble, Liang Wenyan immediately asked someone and found out that Xiao Ning indeed had 2 maids in the Liang mansion. Therefore, he immediately had those 2 maids sent out by the back door. He thought very simply, didn't Xiao Ning come with the city guard? Then let the person in front take the lead first. When the situation gets bigger, it's best for Xiao Ning or the brave general under his command to take action, and then he can step forward. At that time, he can directly deny it, and even have the city guard search inside the mansion. When they find that there is no one they are looking for in the mansion, the initiative will be in the hands of the Liang family. Not everyone can search the Liang family mansion, even the prince cannot. What Liang Wenyan never expected was that Xiao Ning had no scruples and directly asked his subordinates to kill him. This was simply insane. Since the founding of the great Qin dynasty, no one has been so cruel to the 7 noble families, even the emperor could not have done so. Moreover, he found that even if he stepped forward, he couldn't hold the situation back. Xiao Ning didn't even bother him, and he could only hope that those 2 girls could be chased back quickly so that the Liang family could die less. Chapter 10. They don't have this opportunity. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Watching the crazy slaughter between LV Bu and Xiao Ning, not only the city guards on the side were dumbfounded, but Yuan Shang also had doubts on his face, completely unable to understand Xiao Ning's actions. Yuan Shang, who is also a prince, is well aware that whether in the northern Xiongnu or the Great Qin, these nobles are the objects that the princes are striving for, because if they want to ascend to the position of the 95th emperor, they cannot do without the support of these nobles. Most of the officials in the court have intricate connections with these families, and many even come from these families at all. If you don't get the support of these nobles, someone in the court will speak up for you. Moreover, these nobles also control public opinion among the people. If they spread rumors among the people that a certain prince is foolish, the people will really think that you are foolish. At that time, the court will be boycotted, and there will be a lot of criticism from the people. Do you still want to become an emperor? Pooh. Yuan Shang had no support from any nobles in the northern Xiongnu Empire, so when facing difficulties, he had to choose to leave the northern Xiongnu Empire. Therefore, he never expected that Xiao Ning would treat the Liang family so strongly. Does this guy really know what he's doing? Yuan muttered in pain, suddenly feeling that this guy, who is even younger than himself but more powerful than himself, is either a madman or an extremely terrifying existence that is completely different from himself. I'm back, I'm back. At this moment, a hurried cry suddenly came from outside, and several people from Liang Mansion rushed in with Chunlan and Dongxue. Xiao Ning turned around and saw the two of them, so he took the initiative to put away his sword and called out to Lu Bu, who was about to kill. The guards who survived naturally dared not continue to attack, and the courtyard instantly fell silent. Your Highness. Seeing Xiao Ning, Chunlan and Dongxue rushed over and made a blessing to Xiao Ning, crying and saying, "We thought we would never see His Highness again." Xiao Ning looked at the two of them and found that there were several fingerprints on Dongxue's fair little face. She immediately lowered her face. Who hit this? As he spoke, he turned to look at the Liang family. You'd better take the initiative and not give me a reason to take action again. Who is it? Hurry up. Stand up. Liang Wenyan quickly exclaimed, these two murderous gods have finally come to a stop. He doesn't want to provoke them anymore, and now this matter has become too big. There are about 30 people dead alone, and 5 or 6 of them are members of the Liang family. This is no longer something he can handle, so Liang Wenyan just wants to quickly send Xiao Ning away and then send someone to the master's house in Danyang County to report and have someone come over to handle this matter. Grandpa. Grandpa. Yes. It's me. A young man in his 20s stood up trembling and said with a mournful expression. Xiaoqin. Upon seeing this young man, Liang Wenyan was taken aback. This was his own grandson Liang Chen. Did he hit it? Xiao Ning turned to look at Dongxue. Before Dongxue could speak, Chunlan pointed at Liang Chen and said. Yes. It's him. He led someone into the mansion, but Xiaoxue intervened and was knocked unconscious by his slap. Xiao Ning nodded, turned around, and walked towards Liang Chen, who was full of fear. Liang Wenyan saw that the situation was not good and quickly stepped forward. Prince Ning, this is my own grandson. Please spare him this time. I am willing to compensate this ant. Puff. Before Liang Wenyan could finish speaking, Xiao Ning's hand started to fall with a knife. Liang Chen's head had already been cut off, and his face was filled with extreme shock and fear. You. Liang Wenyan's eyes suddenly turned black and he almost fainted. He raised his hand and pointed at Xiao Ning with a trembling index finger. My grandson, even if he hit your maid, wouldn't this crime end in death? You. Who told you that I killed him because he hit my maid? Before Liang Wenyan could finish speaking, Xiao Ning's cold voice rang out. I killed him because he led people to forcibly break into my mansion and rob people. Your Liang family is very brave now. Your grandson dares to lead some servants to forcibly break into the palace. Can you also lead people to forcibly break into the palace? Speaking, Xiao Ning turned around to look at the colonel. What should be the crime of forcibly breaking into the royal palace and plundering its people without obtaining the imperial decree? Your Highness, if you consider your accomplices to rebel, you should punish the 3 tribes. The captain immediately clasped his fists and bowed. Brush. Xiao Ning turned around and suddenly placed a single sword in his hand around Liang Wenyan's neck. Did you hear that? Kill the 3 clans. Since he is your own grandson, then. I killed you now, and you deserve it, right? Liang Wenyan's heart was instantly cold, and in Xiao Ning's eyes, he saw the true killing intent. Liang Wenyan was well aware that although the emperor had always tolerated the 7 noble families, it was only because he did not want to break ties with them, leading to chaos in the world. The influence of the 7 noble families was not limited to their respective counties. Similarly, the 7 noble families will never easily disobey the emperor. After all, they are the ruler of a country, which really drives them crazy. It will not benefit the 7 noble families at all. Both sides will suffer, and the net will be broken. This is something that no one wants to see, and it is also the reason why there has always been a subtle balance between imperial power and the big families. So, if this suddenly changed from cowardice to dominance, and even some bloodthirsty Prince Ning really killed him, because with the premise of Liang Qinxiang raiding the royal palace to kidnap people, the royal family held great righteousness, and the main family would definitely not fight against the emperor because of this, and even push the blame completely onto them, completely abandoning this branch of the imperial city. Of course, if that's the case, the emperor will definitely have to make some compensation in other aspects, but no matter what, their group is doomed. In politics, such incidents happen too often, and with enough benefits, anyone can be used as a bargaining chip. Liang Wenyan, who felt that Xiao Ning really had the intention to kill himself, instantly calmed down. He also threw his recently deceased grandson behind his head. Because the knife was hanging around his neck, he dared not bow and could only look at Xiao Ning and say, "Your Highness, Prince Ning, forgive me. It's because of my education that it didn't harm my grandson and caused him to make a big mistake. My Liang family will definitely explain this to your Highness." Humph. Upon hearing these words, Xiao Ning, with a hint of unwillingness on her face, withdrew the knife and returned it to the captain, staring at Liang Wenyan and saying, "Since that's the case, please contact your master as soon as possible. I will give you 7 days. If your explanation does not satisfy me, I don't mind taking Tiger Lai Camp to Danyang County for a tour." After speaking, Xiao Ning turned around and waved his hand, stepping out of the Liang mansion, leaving behind corpses all over the ground, along with the grieving and angry Liang family father. This bastard killed Dishonor and let him go like this. Let's go find his Majesty and bring him with us to rush into our Liang mansion to kill him. After Xiao Ning and his companions left, a middle-aged man in his 50s with a slightly different face from Liang Chen rushed to Liang Wenyan and said with a resentful expression. However, before he could finish speaking, Liang Wenyan slapped him in the face. "Pop! Go find your Majesty. What are you doing with your Majesty? Tell your Majesty that your son led someone into the royal palace and snatched back the maid of Prince Ning, so he was killed by Prince Ning." Liang Wenyan roared at the middle-aged man with a fierce expression on his face. "If you didn't hear the colonel's words clearly just now, I'll repeat it for you again. This is called rebellion, killing the 3 clans. Are you going to send all the more than 100 members of the Liang family in the imperial city to the guillotine? Get lost." Leaving the Liang family, Xiao Ning took people directly to the Shi family. The head of the Shi family was in Hedong County. In fact, none of the 7 famous families had their heads in the imperial city. They were all local tycoons who had been operating in the area for hundreds of years and had already turned their county into a middle country. They wouldn't have taken the initiative to move to the imperial city. As soon as they walked into the alley where the Shi family was located, Xiao Ning and others saw more than 10 people kneeling outside the Shi mansion. Beside these people, there stood a graceful figure, which was Autumn Chrysanthemum. Indeed, they are the 7 prestigious clans, united in spirit, and the news is really well received. Xiao Ning sneered and continued to move forward. Shi Jingxian, a historian, has met His Highness Prince Ning. Seeing Xiao Ning and others approaching, a few people walked towards them and bowed in front of the elderly man, saying, "The servants in the mansion were ignorant and deceived by others. They followed the people of the Liang family to break into Prince Ning's mansion and brought back Miss Choju. I am not strict with the imperial decree, so I request Prince Ning to surrender. All the participants have been taken down by the old master. Even if Prince Ning falls, Miss Choju will be safe and sound. I hope Prince Ning will learn from this." Choju had already rushed over at this moment. After bowing to Xiao Ning, she hugged the other 2 maids and burst into tears. Xiao Ning, on the other hand, looked at those people and then at the colonel. "Are everyone here?" The colonel looked forward and nodded, saying, "Lord Hui, everyone is here." "Fengxian. Kill it," Xiao Ning said calmly. Liu Bu agreed, his right arm exerted force, and the tail of the halberd suddenly inserted into the blue stone slab on the ground. Then he drew out his sword and stepped forward to chop towards the neck of a person kneeling on the ground. A dozen screams of agony passed, and all the people kneeling on the ground were separated from their bodies. Liu Bu sheathed his sword and returned to stand behind Xiao Ning without changing his expression. The Shi family watched as Liu Bu, who was killing like drinking water, secretly felt relieved. Fortunately, they received the news, and Shi Jingxian immediately made a wise decision. Otherwise, the massacre of the Liang family would probably have been staged in the Shi family as well. Xiao Ning looked at Shi Jingxian. "Since you understand the truth, then I don't care too much about myself. You should already know what I said in the Liang family before, and you are the same. Remember, 7 days. I understand." Shi Jingxian arched his hand again. Xiao Ning nodded, then turned around and left, leaving only the last one. The Zhang family. In the Zhang family, Xiao Ning met exactly the same thing as the historian, so he didn't waste any time, so Liu Bu killed the people who had entered the palace of Lord Ning, and returned with 4 girls. "You are really imposing in this circle. I estimate that tomorrow, the names of you and Liu Bu will be well known in this imperial city, and even stop children from crying at night. But although you are doing this for a while, it is undoubtedly cutting off your own path." On the way back to the palace, Yuan Shang, who had been frowning and pondering, couldn't help but say, "Although this family has conceded now, they will never give up on it. You are stepping on their faces. If they don't find them back, what is the prestige of the noble family? So, in the future, your days may not be easy. Believe me, they will do everything they can to ruin your reputation, and then they will appear in front of you again, repaying you 100 times the humiliation you gave them today. No. Believe me, they won't have this opportunity." A mysterious smile appeared at the corner of Xiao Ning's mouth.